Your teams need to master new technologies fast, and they need answers to pressing problems right now. Don't stress. With O'Reilly, your tech teams can learn what they need and get back to work fast. Visit O'Reilly.com for a demo. That's O'Reilly.com.
We love her around here. Yes, we do. All right, moving on. Skip to Malou. Stunning Sonia, video game player. Good to see you all here. Chris Miller, welcome to the show. The gorgeous Simply Coco, please let us know what your drink of choice is for tonight. We would greatly appreciate it. Lovely Lauren, nice to have you here. Blue Chicken, GJ Hartwell, or JG Hartwell, there we go. Awesome Annie Svensson, nice to have you back. It's been a while. And Project Blue Book, Mr. Lurks-a-Lot, nice to see you both here. And will we finish? Magnus, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming on in. And Travis DeLuca, nice to see you. Nicholas Shaughnessy, been a while. How you been doing? Fapster, what's going on, buddy? The gorgeous Nicole Perron, nice to see you. And Randy Spurl again. Penman, nice to have you here, buddy. And I think we're almost caught up here. There's Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. And Roscoe Rosier, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on in. And Peppa H, Steve Wolf, Amy Vegas O. We love our Amy Vegas O around here. Otis Trailer, how you been? Haven't seen you in a while. And we're going to get going here in a couple of seconds. Hi, Uncle Dale in your power stash. Horns up. Let's rock. Super Chat is open. And it's time to talk some Bigfoot. Mr. Bumblefoot. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. It's another wonderful night in the woods tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Carter Buschardt is here. He's going to talk some problems with the Bigfoot world, as well as some of his own encounters and stories that he has researched. Hour number 3, we'll go to the swamp with Swamp Dweller. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio has some new updates for us. We got the Dave 101, Shirky Poo's news, and the Thought of the Dave as well. Carter Buschardt has been researching Sasquatch for well over a decade. He has led expeditions into the deep forests of the Americas, and he has seen them, heard them, and seen incredible physical evidence of their actual existence. Carter has also interviewed over 200 witnesses and counting. They have told him some fascinating events, some of which defy logic. Yet he continues to hear these claims over and over. A pattern of behavior and possible esoteric skill sets has emerged, and these have to be investigated, much to the chagrin of many people inside the Bigfoot community. Carter Buschardt, welcome again back to Spaced Out Radio. How are you doing?
Oh, you caught me napping.
That's okay.
I'm doing great, Dave. What's going on?
Well, it's always good to have you back here, my friend. Always good to have you part of the show. Thank you so much for talking some Bigfoot with us tonight. Now, for people who may not be familiar with you, you've been doing this for well over a decade now. You've heard some amazing, amazing stories. You are not only a researcher and an author where your books can be found on Amazon, but you're part of the Bigfoot Research Organization as well. And, there's some not good and not so good things about that group, which we could get into a little bit later. But for people who need to know you and what you're all about, tell us how you fell in love with researching Sasquatch.
Well, I fell in love with researching Sasquatch when I went to Washington, D.C. My wife and I just went, and I just happened to, be hiking in the Cascade Mountains, and I found a geocache box. You know what those are?
I am a geocacher.
Yeah, and so I thought it was in a ammo box that was chained to a tree, and I actually thought I'd found somebody's drug stash, which made me even more anxious to get in there. But when I got in the box, I found, and I'd already been interested in Sasquatch, living here in Missouri, and I found the card of a Bigfoot investigator from Washington, and I contacted him and asked how I could get on an expedition to become an investigator, because I'd already been accumulating theories and some reports. And so he sent me a name of somebody. I got on a expedition. Long story short, became an investigator very, very quickly. And I've led 4 expeditions for BFRO. And actually, my bio is probably not accurate. I've interviewed probably close to 400 witnesses in written 4 books. They're really boiled down to 2 books. But some of the stuff people are telling me, oh, my God, it's just not the pedestrian road crossing or a Sasquatch is watching me fish. It's quantum, abstract, bizarre, paranormal stuff where they're walking through walls and mind speak. And, you start hearing this once in a while. It's like, okay, maybe you're smoking the good stuff or whatever. But time after time after time, when people are seeking me out, and halfway through writing the first book, I was getting bombarded with all these crazy stories. And they're not crazy anymore. They're like, this stuff's really happening to these people, and you have to look into it. You don't have to believe it, but you should at least consider it, because people are going through mind-boggling stuff, So that's the Cliff Notes version of how I got here.
You were somebody, when we talked to you last a number of months ago, who is in a real conundrum, because you are someone who has collected a lot of very intriguing stories where 2 + 2 does not equal 4, and it shows something almost supernatural with this creature or surrounding this creature, which defies the absolute laws of the Bigfoot Research Organization, that absolutely has nothing to do with any reports with the woo factor.
Yeah, it's depressing, and it's kind of sad, but I when I do reports, I'll give you a little background. When I do report, I was a realtor for a lot of years, still am. I still real estate part-time. But, my anal retentive methodology is, when I finish something, I make a copy of it and file it away. You keep your paperwork. That's what you do. You have a paper trail. And then when I started seeing some of my reports published, there was stuff missing. The esoteric, anything that shows any kind of intelligence or the ability to count or speaking or cloaking, that stuff was just taken out. Yet they would publish the report. They would just take out that stuff. And I broached the subject, and nobody would talk to me. And I've had probably 6, 7, 8 reports completely sanitized, where the stuff that really gets your attention and makes you question what's going on is gone. And that's not fair. And I had a couple of witnesses call me and bitch me out. What's going on? That's not what I told you. And then I looked at the reports. I'm going, oh, my God, you're right. And there's nothing I can do about it. What I do now, I'm still at BFRO. Of course, after this show, maybe I won't be, but that's fine. But I'm just not doing reports. I cannot contribute to the corrupted database, because I cannot, according to other investigators, I'm not the only guy who's having his report sanitized. And so that database, which is the world's largest, is corrupted. To what degree, I don't know. But, I can tell you, you're not going to see anything paranormal, quantum, anything that relates to intelligence.
Why would
in
they
their
do
reports.
that? Why would they do that? Why? I mean, we don't know what this creature is. We don't know if it's a hominid. We don't know if it's a monkey. We don't know if it comes from space. We don't know anything about this creature. Sure, there's evidence. Sure, there's footprints. Sure, there may be some hair samples and maybe scat samples that are out there. But in reality, we don't have a body. We don't have anything. How can, if you were conducting anything scientific with the BFRO, I'm not saying you specifically, but how can they sit there and with a straight face and do this to their members and the people who are trusting them with that information?
I can't tell you. Lack of conscience? I don't know. I mean, my thing is that they have a TV show to protect. You got to sell as many, you got to sell as much product as you can for the sponsors. You got to sell tampons, beer, and medicine for old people, and hamburgers for McDonald's. You got to sell stuff. And if it's paranormal left or center, that ain't going to fly when you're selling ad space, week after week, month after month. So I think it's not that some of them don't believe that, because there are many investigators within the organization that absolutely are on board, and they got a lot more bizarre stuff going on than I do. But they got a TV show to protect. And so anything that has anything to do with any kind of intelligence or paranormal is just out, because that's not what the mainstream public wants, which is a bunch of crap, really, because they do want it. Because, like you said, there is something about these beings that is freaking everybody out and freaking BFRO out. They just don't want that out there. And so,
yeah, but sometimes the truth hurts. And sometimes, sometimes, Carter, you have to be able to say, look, we didn't think it was this, but the evidence is pointing to this. I mean, that doesn't hurt anybody. All it does is it expands the knowledge of what they are doing. And, what they're doing is conducting opinion. They're not conducting anything scientific. They're conducting opinion.
No. And they bill themselves, or they did, as a scientific group.
Impossible.
And there are people like myself. I try to be as scientific as I can. I'm just an old, dirty, old hippie musician who got into Sasquatch. But, there are guys with a lot more education than I, that know how to proceed in a much more scientific bent. But if it doesn't matter what you do, because if you want to share those on that platform, the BFRO.net, if it relates to anything left or center, forget it.
That is so wrong.
Exactly. Roscoe, exactly. Tell it like it is and let the people decide. That is absolutely correct. Because what I've told Matt and others in the food chain there is that you think you're going to lose a certain percentage of your audience if you start going into the woo, and I really hate that word. It doesn't. It's kind of a dirty word. But if you lose those people, you're going to gain the ones that you were shunning in the past. If you just admit, well, we might have been off on that, we might have been off on this. Here's the reports as they are, and there's nothing I can do about it, because if they wanted to do something about it, they're aware of my opinion and others, and they choose to do nothing.
What does it take? Do shows like this have to continue to call them out? Do shows like this have to, call a spade, and and they're playing clubs when everybody else is playing spades? I mean, what do we have to do here?
I don't know. If it was like a grassroots uprising, somebody with a lot more clout than I would have to probably get in and do something about it. But all they will do is just push a button and delete me from the the investigator list, and I'm out of there. I don't get to see anything. Well, that's okay, but I already know what's going on. I've got probably 6 to 8 of my reports that I made copies of, and they're missing paragraphs, key sentences, And it's just like, it's insulting to the witness, because that's exactly the thing they fear. And that's why people don't come forward, because you come forward with your paranormal stuff where you're hearing mind speak and they're cloaking and walking through a tree or appearing to walk through a tree or whatever it is they're doing. And they won't come forward with that because, the last guy I told just laughed me out of the warehouse and I can't come around anymore. My wife thinks I'm crazy and blah, blah, blah. So people just shut up about it. And that's kind of what they want, because now they can go about their show without being interrupted. All you got to do is just tell the truth once, twice, 3 times, and you will lose a few, acres, the flesh and blood only. And I believe they're both. It can be both. And you'll gain all the people that are hiding in their dark rooms at night, afraid to say anything to anybody, but they're bursting at the seams. They want to tell somebody, and they can't, unless you want to call me. And I listen to it all day long, and if it's a great story, it might end up in a book. And people buy books, and then they start reading about these events, and, oh, look, honey, that's what happened to us. Oh, my God, let's call this guy. Let's call somebody, because he's saying it, and he's saying it, so let's do something. There's hope.
Well, the problem is, and I think you hit an important piece of the puzzle here, when you eliminate portions of somebody's report that they have given to you, you are immediately causing distrust with the person. And to add to that, they're going to tell other people on social media, don't send your report to BFRO, because this is what happened to me. I gave them my report, they edited it, and they made the report different from what actually happened. And that is ridiculous, because for a lot of people, Carter, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me on this, and our audience isn't stupid either. They're going to understand what I'm saying here. Whether it's Sasquatch, UFOs, aliens, ghosts, a lot of these encounters traumatize people. They don't understand. It hurts them emotionally. Some actually get PTSD from it. And this is the reality of it. And if all of a sudden you get a group that is supposed to be prestigious, like the BFRO, is changing the report, that only adds to the psychological problem of what is going on within the community.
Yeah. No, best way I can portray it is, I think BFRO went to bed one night and they woke up and thought they were the U.S. government. And so they can lie and disinform us and manipulate us however they want, because they've got the big database. So, I mean, you're right. It's totally wrong, and it does alienate people, And I don't, we were talking earlier about, the Sasquatch world and how cruel and hateful it is, That doesn't contribute any to that. That's a whole other problem entirely. Is the egos and the race to be the one in the Bigfoot world. So yeah, it's very frustrating. If I had a couple tens of thousands of dollars to start a really big website, I'd be taking the reports and there are some people that kind of yank your chain a little bit, and there's ways to weed them out. And I've heard a lot of strange stuff, but the stuff I put in my book, I think I've vetted all my witnesses the best I can. And some of the stuff is like mind-boggling, blow your mind, you got to be kidding me, kind of stuff. But it's happening. And other people who don't know about these other people are telling me the same thing. They don't want anything. They want anonymity. They don't want their names out. They don't want any money, fame, fortune, nothing. They just want to find a place to tell their story without being laughed at and snickered at and ostracized. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking these reports, and by God, there's some crazy stuff, and it ties into potential UFO, ET, Sasquatch. I mean, parallel dimensions and changing your vibrational frequency. It just gets into stuff that people are going, what? And the problem is, you, me, everybody, the day you're born, the day you come out of the birth canal, you are educated about how the world is. A teacher who taught the teacher, who taught the teacher, who taught the teacher, multiply that times 10 generations, 250 years. of disinformation. They're handed a book and they tell you, this doesn't exist, UFOs don't exist, Bigfoots don't exist, Dogman doesn't exist. Oh, wait, the government was lying. UFOs do exist. Okay, they lied for 80 years. Okay, our bad, sorry. But, so it's going to be the same with Sasquatch. We're taught that these kind of things just can't be, other than a dumb ape. Anything with intelligence that can count, read,
and yet
leave clear.
And yet that goes against the grain of what even Dr. Jeff Meldrum says, because he does believe there is an intelligence there. And he may not be on the woo side of everything. I know you hate that word. I hate Squatch. So, we have to be able to look at that these non-scientists are actually arguing with a professional scientist and anthropologist who is studying this as well.
Yeah, and I beat up on science real bad because science is complicit in keeping this stuff hushed up because, science gets their grant money from the government. And guess what? The government don't want you saying anything. So you want your grant money? Here it is. You don't say a thing. Meldrum is doing as much as he can. And, the University of Idaho has given him a pretty long leash. I mean, I applaud him for saying what he can, but he is saying only what he can without crossing a line. His beliefs and what he says in public may be two different things, but, he's doing good work and he's keeping the feet in the fire, but he just can only go so far without jeopardizing his career and pension and tenure and all that stuff. And I get all that. I hate it, but that's the way we're designed, so that's the way it is with him. But, most scientists will shun it. If we don't say it exists, it doesn't exist. And we have to see it. We need to have a body. And there's some really good work done by some really smart people in the Sasquatch world. And they will rival science as far as DNA and anthropological studies and stuff like that. They just don't have a bunch of letters by the name, so they don't count.
No, very true, very true. And
streaming on Peacock, it's the girls' trip of a lifetime.
Look at this water!
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Oh my God, a stingray!
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now!
And there's no party like a housewives party.
I don't give a f***. You're not a girl's girl. Why would you say that?
Find out what happens when the forecast brings sunshine and a whole lot of shade.
You are so self-absorbed, it's crazy.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Are you ready for the big day? Not your big day, her big day, Valentine's Day. Celebrate the one who caught your heart. Go to FTD.com to save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15 on fresh, florist-delivered flowers for your sweetheart. See website for details. FTD, give with meaning.
Unfortunately, you do need those letters in order to get your point across with some sort of credibility. Otherwise, You're just a wannabe. I mean, I just don't know how much more evidence we need. Granted, we don't have a body that we know of, Carter. But, I mean, with all the footprints, with all of the hair samples, there's been scat samples taken, fingerprints taken, footprints taken. Not just the print of the foot, the casting of the foot, but the actual print on the bottom of the foot. The dermal ridges and everything.
Dermal ridges.
There is plenty of evidence out there to support that there's not some weirdo going out 300 miles into the forest in a no man's zone to go put footprints in there on some steep deer trail going up a mountain. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. I mean, if you're going to be a hoaxer, you want attention. The last place you're going to get attention is 200-300 miles into the bush. It just ain't going to happen. You're going to do it by the picnic trail by the lake at the conservation area where mom and pop and the kids all have dinner and stuff. And oh, look at this Bigfoot! And you're sitting in the bushes and you gotcha. They want instant gratification, so they're not going to do anything like that. So that handprint behind me there on that side, that's got dermal ridges. That was taken here in Kansas City. That's 13 inches from the base of the palm to the middle of the middle finger. 13 inches. That's dermal ridges on that baby. It's in my second book. It's in my first. I can't even remember. But I took it to a police lab. Clandestinely with the connection I had, and they ran it. And of course, they ran it through once you take a handprint or a fingerprint into a police lab, there's cameras everywhere. So you have to run it through the database. You have to run it through the criminal database. So, they ran it through the database, and luckily that Sasquatch didn't have a criminal record. They would have.
Well, that's good.
But but I took the print, and my partner Brian Woods got the print at a place we routinely look at here, Monkey Mountain, it's called, and I wonder why it's called that. Here in Kansas City, Green Valley. But there's drummer ridges. There's drummer ridges on the palm and 3 of the fingers and the thumb, and they're plain as day. And they told my connection. I said, I don't know who this is or what it is. I don't want to know, but don't ever bring me anything like this again. I can't risk it because it was too bizarre.
Carter, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here. At the bottom of the hour, Carter Buschardt is here tonight. When we come back, here's a weird story coming out of Washington State regarding David Paulides. Yeah, we're going to get into this. This is not right. This is also going to lead into what I'm speaking about in the Dave 101 later on in the show. So let's get to it. Make it happen. Spaced Out Radio, talking Bigfoot all night long. Right here. We're clear, man.
All right. It's really, really frustrating, but I've been hearing so many good things. Literally, I would probably start a BFRO type website, but it's just too much money and there's a lot of work, and a lot of the reports
you need a full-time webmaster, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, and I'm just not there, and I just at this stage of the game, I'm more interested in gathering data and presenting it and let others, run with it. What I'm really hoping to do, I want to be a witness advocate and have more people contact me, not to write more books, but I got more data, more information, and it all matches up. It all matches with other people that don't have any skin in the game other than wanting to tell their story. It matches up. The weirdness of it all. It's just bizarre. A guy in Canada, got a creature reached his hand through his wall, put his finger on his forehead, zapped him, knocked him out. He had an out-of-body experience. He's looking at his dead body on the floor. This creature was trying to get his attention. He's been dealing with this creature for 40 some odd years. Stuff like that, and how do you debunk that? You just can't, because it matches up. And with him, because he's got a plethora of data, is that he's meticulous with all his details. And if I make a mistake, he goes, no, that's not right. It was on the left side of there. He would correct me on just minutia. And hoaxers don't do that. They don't take that kind of time, And so he's got it all down, and he's been living this for a long, long time, and nobody will talk to him. He's been on a couple other talk shows, and his name is fictionalized in the book, David Allen. Oh, I was going to look. Are we still off?
Yeah. Just remember, the audience can hear us here, right?
Okay, hang on.
Caramius. I know exactly where that is. It is south of me on Highway 3 in that area of Caramius. There is a lot of desert, a lot of forest. They both meet together. There's a river that runs in between, and Caramius is right in between Princeton and Osoyoos, where it's right along the American border, and there is a lot of big stuff happening around there. Now, very interesting about that, too, as your sources probably told you, that area between Caramius and Osoyoos and Penticton, as you start to head north, is filled with UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he gave me an interesting story that I'm pretty sure is UFO related.
Yeah, save that one.
I put it in the book simply because it affected his girlfriend at the time very adversely. If you want to talk about it later, I can
we'll
fill you in,
we'll talk about it on the show here. I quickly here, everyone. I want to remind all of you that we are going to be changing the plans a little bit for Las Vegas. Well, we're still going. Don't get me wrong, but instead of the original itinerary, we're going to be basing everything around Fremont Street in Vegas, April 22nd to 24th. And we are going to be hanging out at the Golden Nugget. We're going to be doing a live show from the Golden Nugget inside a conference room. We're going to be bringing in some very, very important people. Hint, there may be a certain UFO journalist from Las Vegas at a television station that may be there. I'm not going to give you any more hints than that. You can figure it out on your own. And we are going to be just gathering at the Golden Nugget. We're going to be hanging on out all weekend long, and we want as many of you to come on in. So what you need to do is, if you are 100% going, go to info@spacedoutradio.com. Okay, book your hotel at the Golden Nugget. And that's where I'm going to be staying. That's where Lynn Wallington's going to be staying. And we're all going to be crashing there. And we are going to make sure that we have a good time. We have a good time there. So let's make it all happen right there. Go book yourself. I'm going to try and get a promo code for you guys in the next day or two. And we're going to make sure that we all can congregate, have a good time in Las Vegas, April 22nd to 24th. So let's make sure it happens, and make sure you hit that email if you're going. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the Sasquatch talk tonight with our good friend Carter Buschardt. He is out of the beautiful state of Missouri, looking for Sasquatch under every rock and in every crevice he can find. So, let's talk about it. Sasquatch. Carter, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, Nate told me about that Vegas thing. That sounds kind of fun.
Well, you should come. You should come to Las Vegas for the party.
I might. I'm dwelling on it. So, yeah. So April, what is it?
Well, we should announce to our radio side, April 22nd to 24th at the Golden Nugget on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. We are gathering with our Spaced Out Radio listeners to have a weekend getaway. Just us listeners, hanging on out, sharing some good stories. We're going to be doing a live show on the 23rd on our YouTube channel. We're going to have some special guests there. Our weekend host, Lynn Wallington, is going to host that. And we've got a conference room set up there. And the first 50 people who sign up at info@spacedoutradio.com are going to get a swag bag from us. I think we've got about almost 30 people already booked saying they're going. So it's getting there. We're moving on up, and we're going to be talking Bigfoot and UFOs and aliens and ghosts and everything over a few drinks, a few laughs, and maybe a game of cards.
Yeah, I love Fremont. I love Fremont Street, man. That's where you get the real folks down there. You know, I mean, and I'm a poker player. I mean, this is my poker hat. That's the one
we're in.
I don't know how you found that picture, by the way. That is still bizarre. But you do good research.
Well,
this is my poker hat from a tournament. So,
well, Carter has played in the World Series of Poker. So,
Yep. A couple times.
I want to play you. I do. I want to play you bad.
Well, that's a threat right there. I may have to come just to kick your butt in poker.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. I will. You know what? I will. I'm sure there's a number of other people who are coming to our Vegas party where we could fill up a poker table and we could have some fun. Maybe our own mini SOR tournament or something.
Well, if you can go to most poker rooms, you can just say, "Hey, I want a table for my friends," and they'll throw a game down.
Yeah,
and get a deal. So that's typically done. So
we can do that. Well, let's see you down there. How about that?
Okay. All right.
We got something very serious to talk about right now, Carter, because I know you have spoken on the Sasquatch circuit. We're getting into conference time. And, I thank Nate Rudd from from Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Society, WIBS, on Facebook if you want to find him, where he asked me, he goes, "Hey, man, have you seen this?" And I'm like, what's going on? And apparently, and I'm not going to name the conference because I don't think when something like this happens that it should be named. But there's a conference at the end of this month in Washington State that originally booked David Paulides from the Missing 411 fame to be their keynote speaker. And yesterday, Mr. Paulides had to pull out of the event due to death threats to himself and his family at the event or at his hotel. I mean, this is just unconscionable that there are people within the Bigfoot community, Carter, that would hate someone or disagree with someone so bad that they are threatening to end his life and his wife's life. I mean, this is a man who has been going through a lot of trauma in the last year and a bit publicly with the passing of his son, Ben, who had suffered from depression and anxiety and lost the battle with and committed suicide. I mean, that's brutal on any family. But, I mean, what is wrong with the Sasquatch community that we see crap like this happening?
Well, right off the bat, I'll say it may have come through the Sasquatch family, but it may not be from the Sasquatch family. There could be other people that need the notoriety or the attention that want to threaten him, because of his dealings with the 411. There's, and we could talk about what's wrong with the Bigfoot community after the fact, but, I don't blame them as much as, I blame that maybe perhaps he torqued off a family member of a missing person. Some of the search and rescue people may have an axe to grind. Ex-cops, like he was, may have an axe to grind. And he's calling attention to an area. Maybe the government is throwing some shade in his direction to get him to keep it down a little bit because maybe he's getting too close to things. Other people are saying, well, maybe he's just churning the water so he can sell a few more books. He's, and I did a lot of research on today. I was reading a lot of Reddit stuff, and of course it's on the internet. It's got to be true, but there are a lot of theories that, a lot of search and rescue people are not happy with the way they have been portrayed, and missing some clues or exaggerating or getting things wrong and sensationalize things and making them look bad. So there's a lot of angles to that, but it's just shameful that, it was a threat on him and his family, especially, a year or so after his son passed. I mean, that's just, pouring salt in the wound. But, either way, it's unacceptable. What could you be doing that is worth a threat on your life? I mean, he's getting too close to somebody. I mean, I think he's either getting too close and they want to shut him up a little bit, or he's just made it up. And
I don't think he's the kind of guy who makes that kind of crap up to sell a book.
No, you don't have a lot of choices here. So he's either gotten too close to somebody or the truth, with the government and the Forestry Service, and who knows who else is complicit in the missing scenario, because there's some things going on there that are really mystical, metaphysical, quantum type things. And I read a story today about somebody there who was missing, and she was watching them look for her, and she was calling out, and they couldn't hear her, but she could hear them. Stuff like that, like she's in another dimension or another plane, and she's watching them look for her, and she's going, I'm over here. And they didn't see her. It's like she wasn't there, because she was there, but she wasn't there. It was a veil. So, but yeah, I hope it's nothing he's done. I rather doubt it is. I think it's just sour grapes from either law enforcement or SAR, which is search and rescue, or somebody else who's got an axe to grind for whatever reason. Former cops don't like what he's doing. There's rumors that he was a brutal cop, that he roughed up a lot of people. Well, maybe it's somebody from that era of his life, if any of that stuff is true. There's reports were supposedly put in I think the Sacramento Bee or one of the newspapers out there that talked about charges and insinuations against him as a cop, but you have to subscribe or, be a member of this little newspaper clique or whatever to even read the stories, but apparently they do exist. But yeah, it's just bizarre, and people have a lot of critique on him. I applaud his work really, because he's showing that there is something weird going on with the NFS, National Forestry Service, and possibly the government. I can't put them past doing anything to discredit somebody, especially if he's getting too close to the truth. So, yeah, it's bizarre. And the Bigfoot community is hateful anyway. I mean, it's like it's a Hatfield and McCoys. You go to dinner and there's a food fight 5 minutes later. Everybody's just beating anybody up. Everybody's stabbing anybody in the back. Nobody likes anybody. If you got a scoop on something, it's just very competitive. And that's not why I'm in this. I'm trying not to be a part of any of that stuff. I've lost my cool a couple times, but as a rule, I just stay away from it. I'm going, oh my God, what's wrong with you people? It's not a race. It's a quest. It's not a race to be popular. It's not a race to get things. It's a quest for an answer to a centuries-old question. That's really what it is, So.
Well, either way, I mean, and I want to know more about that lady who is stuck in a different dimension here momentarily. But getting back to the David Paulides thing, I mean, this is just, I don't agree with that. That look, whether you have your enemies or not, and trust me, he deals in some very, very sticky type subjects, and he's, not afraid to call people out. I mean, that's what he's been very successful at doing. He's called out law enforcement agencies. He's called out forest rangers. He's called out the military. He's called out government officials. He has put a target on his back. But I mean, if it is someone within the Sasquatch community who is doing it, I mean, it just goes to show the huge divide, Carter, that is really rampant within a community that is all about seeking its own fame and fortune, hoping to get that next type of Patterson-Gimlin film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And, I think it would be more that he's getting too close to something. He's ticked some people off, and they're going to try to hit him where it hurts. I don't know what the anniversary date of his son's passing is, but if you take that and you start, throwing, shade at him and making him look to be a fool, and, taking some inconsistencies in his stories or reports and blowing them way out of proportion. Lord knows we all make mistakes when you're writing something or researching something. You'll make a mistake here and there, but it's not worth that kind of stuff, And I hope for the Bigfoot community, it's not in the Sasquatch community, but it could be. I think it might be more of the service.
Ray Magliozzi here. The tier in my driver's seat does have sentimental value since my butt's molded to fit it. But I'm ready for a new one from eBay Motors with all the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them. Till then, I'll just scooch. eBay Motors, let's ride.
7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now. Only on Peacock.
The forestry service or the government or fellow police officers just got an axe to grind, and they don't like the attention or what he's doing or what he's saying, and they're throwing stuff at him. It's shocking. It's just like to where you don't want to show up to an event because someone. I mean, what are we coming to? Is an organization? We're all supposed to be brothers and sisters trying to find an answer to this problem, this situation, this question we've had about Sasquatch and who they are, what they are, and how long they've been here, and we're all sidetracked. We're all going after the prize in a different way, and it's mean and hateful. It's counterproductive, which is what the government and other forces that be want. They want division.
Oh, true enough.
In what we're doing.
True enough, but you know what? You know what? There's also a point though where this community, as we stated earlier, is so divided between the theories of what this creature is that people are literally getting into fistfights about it. Never mind online wasting time, Twitter and Facebook posts that ramble on forever. This gets serious within this community because people do not want to give up their angle on whether it's a monkey or whether it's supernatural. I mean, it's childish.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's really high school. And I found myself a couple times getting caught up in a couple of conversations online, Facebook, with just ridiculous rhetoric. And insulting rhetoric, and somebody posted a photo out of one of my books and they were tearing that photo up. Well, if there's not a name and phone number with that photo, then it's just a bunch of hooey, that can't call himself a researcher because he didn't have a name and address of the guy who posted it. Where's the photo before and the photo after? Well, there's a reason there's not. You don't want somebody getting grief because if I identify my source, he's going to get roasted. And who's he going to be pissed at? Me, So you don't get, but I had to call a couple people out, and then I realized I was getting cut off in their own game, and I was stooping to their level. I was going, oh God, and I've got, a little bit of a temper, but it's not worth it. It detracts from the goal, which is seeking the answer. So, it's amazing how hateful the Bigfoot community is. We talk a good talk, but
what brings on that hate?
I think everybody wants to be the one, and I see these little groups pop up and they disappear in a couple of months. They put up the same photos and the same theories and the same blurry photos and the red circles and all that junk and structures and stuff. And it's stuff that it's been regurgitated. But there is potentially millions of dollars at stake if you have the smoking gun. You've got the type specimen. You've got a body. You've got something that you can take. And boy, the fight for that is ridiculous. I think that's what sparks it. People want attention so bad they're going to do almost anything to get it. And if you've got a theory and they don't agree with it, you're stupid. You're dumb, and I'm smarter than you are because I can't believe you believe that. And people fall into it. Then you get all these factions fighting, and it clouds the waters, and we get nowhere. So
here's what I see from an outsider's perspective. I see people who are out there, Carter, who are adamant that they're the ones with the answer. And nobody's going to tell them different. Whether it's the guy in British Columbia here who, this is a monkey, it's a monkey, it's a monkey, we're looking for a monkey. You get the other people where this is Gigantopithecus, it is nothing more than a great ape here, and no, it's a monkey, no, it's the great ape. Well, then you get the stories of the First Nations. Ah, shush. You guys don't know what you're talking about because we're in science. Then you have the people like you've interviewed and people who I've interviewed who've said, no, man, this disappeared right in front of me, and then there was a UFO right afterwards. Explain that to me. Are they tied together? Real researchers who don't close door on phenomena believe there is a connection within the phenomena. Then you got the people, that little sect in Washington State, who believe Sasquatch are people too and need to have voting rights within every American election. Right?
You're here.
But I mean, people are so steadfast that they don't want to hear anything else. They don't even want Carter Buschardt to be talking at a conference to say, what if? They don't want that. And people are willing to go to the death to support their own cause.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yep. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense, And you're right. They do, they to the death is almost accurate. Some of the vicious hate and backstabbing and just trashing, I just tell everybody, you got to consider everything. You can't just throw it out because you don't believe it. You can't, and what we do, humans hate and do very bad, nasty things to things they do not understand or do not agree with. Look at the state of our countries right now. I mean, all you got to do is look at the way of the politics and COVID and the banking and the stock market and jobs and all of that stuff has turned everybody against everybody. And it's the same with the Sasquatch world. They will fight to the death over their little piece of the rock and die trying, but it may not make any sense at all. You have to consider everything. We're all actually in this together. We really are in this together, trying to get the answer. I think we're all a little bit right. We're all a little bit wrong. It's just theory because we don't have the type specimen. The government has the type specimen. Forest Service knows about it. My guy up in Canada, I've got a great story about what he experienced on a tree planting crew that tells you how complicit the forest companies are, the logging, timber, and paper industry is about. You say nothing, you saw nothing, you see nothing, you say nothing, or you will never work in this profession ever again. So there's a lot of stuff fueling all of this.
I agree with that.
It's just bizarre. But everybody wants to be somebody so bad, and you can be somebody on social media real easy. Open up a Facebook page, put some stuff up there, politics, science, Sasquatch, cars, whatever your thing is, and you can be somebody.
The thing is, though, if you came out with that next film, that next Patterson-Gimlin type film, it is going to be the worst thing that ever happened in your life. Because your name and your family's name is now tied to that video that is going to be ripped apart for decades. Decades. If I had that film, Carter, I wouldn't release it to the public. I would not. And I care about my children and my future grandchildren way too much than to put that video out because of the hell that they will pull through.
Yeah. Well, if it was me, I would hire somebody to break into your house and steal that film, and I would call it mine, because that's how the Bigfoot world works. I mean, there's people that will go, "Where does he live?" Because there's somebody right now listening to this that goes, "Just tell me where the guy lives. I'm going to get that film." There's somebody thinking that way, and getting eaten up with jealousy because you got something and they don't. And maybe their shot is gone. It's bizarre. It's an interesting study in the human condition, is what it is. It's sad, but it's also quite interesting to watch everybody turn on everybody. It's like the Donner group, the cannibalism went on there in Colorado. Bob's looking a little weak today. We might as well off him because I'm kind of hungry, and that thigh bone is looking pretty good. So, there's people that'll do things because you can just see our microcosm of society. You can see the way we turn on each other for nothing, and for big things, but for little piddly stuff.
Oh, I understand you, but if you're thinking that you're going to make $1 million off this that next Patterson Gimlin film, I mean, you have to make sure that you are 100% correct on that, because I mean, people are going to be ripping it apart, absolutely destroying it. Yeah, and people do that with a couple of my books, and that's fine. It's just an opinion, and you don't have to like it. And you can just say, well, that's a bunch of hooey. That's all fiction. That's a bunch of crap. That's okay. That's an opinion. People do. It's a book. It's a book of theories and stories related to me, and I share it with everybody else. Don't kill the messenger is the last sentence in my book. Do not kill the messenger, because it's just stories that people are telling me. And yes, I do vet them best I can. And I don't think there's anything going on with any of these people that are in my books. But yeah, people are just hateful. They want attention. And it's just it's not research. It's vindictiveness. It's just sad. You really can't get anything done with it. There's too much noise going around. Oh, I hear you. Carter, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because when we return from the break here at the top of the hour, Carter Buschardt is going to share with us some of his best investigations and stories of Sasquatch that he has come to and learned about to this day. I love Carter's stories. You will love Carter's stories too, I promise you. This is what makes great radio. Coming up in Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio, author Carter Buschardt, researcher, Sasquatch aficionado, and poker player extraordinaire. We'll be back right after this. You got to come down. I got to play you. I have to play you.
I want to. I have 3 conferences, but nothing in April. So I'm trying to see if my wife will get away. Oh, is this a guys' weekend only?
No. This is what we did was we invited a bunch of I've wanted to do this for a couple of years, and just pick a gathering place with a bunch of my listeners. It's not a conference or anything like that, but just all of us hang out, share stories, have a drink, have a good time. And I haven't been back to Vegas in a long time, so I figured, you know what? If I'm going, everyone's invited.
Well, I'll talk to my wife. She's not a Vegas person, but if I take her to a show, I think she'll be all in.
Take her to a show.
Yeah, and I like a good show. I mean, it's not all about poker and everything, but it is for me. I haven't played in a month. I've been taking a break. Your head gets too mixed up and stuff, and and the COVID has actually affected the poker rooms. Here in Kansas City, they shrunk the people at the table. They shrunk it down from 10 to 6 to 4. Then it went back to 6, and it stayed there for a while. But there's no enforcement of the masks thing. The dealers don't want to affect their tips, so they won't say anything to somebody who's got a mask, falling down below their nose and stuff like that. And it was too erratic. So I said, I'm just going to quit playing until you guys get it together, or the COVID thing's all over. Because I can't be. It gets in your head when you're playing.
My problem is I can't play online. There's too much bingo on there.
Yeah, I don't play online. I like to have, man against man against woman, whatever it is. I like to be able to read you, see your eyes, see your characteristics, your tics, and your things you do to yourself when you're looking at your cards. I mean, that's competition right there. I like that.
Oh, that's my thrill.
Yeah.
We should mention with the David Politis thing, and BIM Jim, I will mention it later, about How to Hunt and Steve Istall. Istall and I know Nate Rudd and a number of others had reached out to David Paulides to protect him from anybody or anything at the conference. David said thanks, but no thanks. He wanted a police escort, and they weren't willing to provide it.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that I was reading on Reddit was that the police didn't find it to be a credible threat, so they're not going to offer protection. You need to have a name, a phone number, or something that they have to go on, because there's a law, and I can't remember what it is, but you cannot refuse protection if someone says somebody threatened me. You have to do something, but and this is according to Reddit, which means nothing because it's internet stuff and you can't verify. But a lot of police say, well, he hasn't followed protocol. He hasn't given us any names. He hasn't given us anything. He just said he got a threat. Well, anybody can say that. I need to have, Bob Jones called and said he was going to kick my butt. That kind. You had to have a name and an address or a motive or something to go on. He hasn't provided that. And as a cop, they say he knows that protocol and he hasn't followed it. So that's why there's a bunch of hooey out there about, well, he's making it up to sell books. He just wants to call attention to himself, whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I think he's getting too close to something and somebody's trying to shut him up a little bit. They may have done it through the Sasquatch community. I hope, that it was not somebody in the community, because I know other Sasquatch people who would do harm to others, specific other people that they have a gripe with in the community.
Oh, yeah.
And it's threatened, it's insinuated, but you just go, boy, I hope that's not true. I hope you just, your emotions are getting to you and you're saying something you just don't really mean. You're just talking out of frustration.
Yeah, we'll get more into that. I will bring that up in the Dave 101 in a little bit, and that'll happen at the bottom end of hour number 3, and we go from there. And yeah, we got about.
Have you had anything going on lately?
Nothing.
You had mentioned. I think you told me one of the stores where you went out and there was some marbles or coins on a log or a tree or.
Yeah, we've had nothing there. And then last year we couldn't even get out to that spot because past spring because of the forest fires.
Oh, the fires, yeah.
Yeah, both my areas got hit. But the other day I actually talked to a logging truck driver, and he was telling me about some areas where he has seen some very strange things. So I've been tipped off. I got tipped off, and I'm pretty good with that. One second here. I want to say a big thank you to Tits McGee, Fapster, Dry Toast, Noble Patrick, Ed, Tom, and Todd for the amazing Super Chats. The Super Chats are a wonderful way to support what we do on this show each and every night for you. So thank you so much for the Super Chats. Here we go, everyone, with hour number 2 coming up right now.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ganga. Ganga is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Carter Buschardt. You can find his books on Amazon, and, of course, he is a Sasquatch researcher the last decade or so, looking for the elusive creature and the experiences he's had along with others. Carter, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Not a problem. Now, you have heard some interesting stories over the years about Sasquatch. Maybe it's supernatural, maybe it's physical, maybe it's just something that's right out of left field. What story has captivated you over the years and just makes you scratch your head?
Well, there's several, but one, there's actually several, but one sticks out because you brought up the logging industry. And it's my guy up in BC, and late 70s, early 80s. He's lived in the bush for a long time. He's kind of a loner guy. So he's seen a lot of things, and he was getting a lot of hints that these beings were trying to communicate, but he just wasn't getting it. I'm just prefacing the story I'm telling you. But anyway, he was hired for a logging on a logging crew to go replant a forest. And as he tells me, Canada and British Columbia especially is really bad about deforesting. They go in and tear it up and rip trees out, and they really aren't really good about replanting and repairing the damage they did to Mother Earth. So anyhow, he was hired with 12 guys to go up and replant certain parts of the forest. And they went 15 or 20 miles into the bush, into places that probably no human has ever seen. He described it that way. It was just like pristine forest that had been logged, but they'd just gone through and torn it up, but you can just tell that nobody ever goes there. So
Weight loss starts with the mind, and nobody knows this better than Martha Cameron, who lost 20 pounds on Noom Weight.
Yeah, I lost 20 pounds and kept it off.
So Martha, why did Noom Weight work so well for you?
Well, Noom was just a really positive weight loss experience for me, and compared to other weight loss programs, they gave me the freedom and flexibility to keep eating what I loved, and that made all the difference in the world because it made me actually enjoy the process. You know what I mean?
Oh, we know, Martha. Learn how Noom's psychological approach can help you lose weight at Noom.com.
A Story of the Rose is a story of love. Go to FTD.com and save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15. And celebrate your love story with iconic roses, florals, and gifts from FTD.
12 guys, 2 crews of 6. They were taken in a van from the forestry office way up into the middle of nowhere. And his 6 guys went to this one little group, and there was no roads. They had to just make their way through there. 6 other guys, the real macho hunter guys, they were kind of all banded together, and they wanted to go up over this hill to see if maybe there was some game so they could maybe come back and hunt. So they went running up into the forest. They went over this hill. My guy went to this little area that had been deforested, as well as where the guys went up over the hill. Anyway, they got out, and they started walking around. The foreman just stayed in the van, and he was just sitting there watching them. And they start walking around, and the ground is pretty much bare. And there's literally hundreds of footprints, anywhere from 8 inches to 25 inches. Bare footprints, Sasquatch prints, big, massive things. And they're all, and they've got these pouches on them with their trees in them. And so, the little seedlings that they're supposed to plant. And so they're all walking around looking at it, and they all suddenly get real giddy. Like, oh, look at the pretty prints. They were just walking around like they were stoned out of their minds. Something came over the whole crew. They were just delirious and looking at all these prints. Now, they had found bushes, big bushes that had been pulled out of the ground very carefully, and holes dug on the side of this hill so you could get into the bottom. There was a cavity at the bottom of this root ball where the juveniles could get in and they could suck on the roots and get all the nutrients out of the roots. When they got there, there was still dirt falling back into the footprints like it had just happened. These creatures were just there. There was saliva dripping from the bottom of these roots, from these root balls. And my guy crawled into one of these holes. He dug it out a little bit more. He crawled into there. And you could get under there and you could see the saliva dripping off. The beings, the Sasquatch kids, or even adults were sucking the juices out of these. It was just crazy. And they pull these trees up and bushes without damaging the root ball. And so you could plop them back down. And so they found footprints all over the place. They were just going crazy. And they were just like, but it was like they were stoned. Like, oh, looky, oh, look at that. Oh my gosh. Oh my. It was funny. It was hilarious as he describes it. And they found a lot of mice holes that had been dug out. And what he gathered was that they were teaching the young ones how to hunt mice. And they were, because they could see the little footprints. Anyway, so at the time this was going on, all of a sudden they hear all this screaming. And it's coming over the hill where the big macho hunters had gone. And they see these trees, these 100-foot trees just swaying. They're just being, rocked back and forth. There's no wind. These trees are being shaken, and they heard this screaming and yelling from these other guys. And they come running over the hill, and their hair is sticking out. Some of them had 2-foot-long hair. Their hair was sticking out like they'd stuck their hand on a Van de Graaff generator. It was sticking out, static electricity. And they were mortified. They were screaming, they're after us, they're after us. And they were just screaming. They were out of their minds. Some of them were crying. They were just scared to death. But their hair was staying. They could see where the hair follicles are into the head, the root ball. It was just swollen. You could see the little dots, like little pimples with hair growing out. It was just crazy. So the foreman finally gets wind of all this. He kind of goes, oh, what's going on? And he runs over there. He's going, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You're running all over. You're trampling up all. How come you're not planting your trees? You just threw them on the ground, because this was the guys that were just like, ooh, looky. It's crazy. It's wild. Oh, look, this is so beautiful. And then the hunters. And so he talks to them all, and they're going, they're after us. What? I don't know. They're after us. Not one of the guys say they saw a Sasquatch, but they knew it was a Sasquatch after them, because they had these images planted in their heads. They told them later. So the foreman interviews them all, and one by one, and then all as a group. And I said, all right, y'all get in the van. We're going to the forestry office, and we are going to talk to the head of this region in Canada. The whole time they drove there, for about 30 minutes, these guys' hair was still standing straight out. And they almost got into a couple of fights because they were laughing and joking about their hair. They're wanting to touch it and everything, because these guys were still kind of half giddy. Bizarre behavior. So they get there, and the guy talks to the head guy there talks to all of them, and all of them separately, and then all of them together. Basically, he says, this never happened. You don't say a word. If you do, you'll never work in the forestry industry ever again. And you probably know, but I don't know, but I assume that it's very hard to get a job out in the bush, unless you want to drive 50 miles to a city one way to get a job. So they split everybody up. Next time they went out, one guy was taken and put on another crew. So his 6 people in his group of 6, each one was put on 6 different groups, one person, so they couldn't have anybody to talk to. You shut the heck up, you don't say a word, or you're done. And they did the same with the hunter group, and they split them all up. And a couple of them were never seen again. They didn't die, but they left and they never came back. They just said, I'm done. But the forestry company says, you didn't see this. This didn't happen. You say nothing. Now, there's a local bar they went into in this area, and there was indigenous peoples there, indigenous group. And they also plant trees, but they all work together. They will only work together. They won't work with any white man or any non-indigenous people. They will only work with their own kind because they want to be able to, talk and speak their own language and talk about things they see and sense without having any interruption. And they all said, we heard your story. We've shared it with our elders, and peace be with you. In other words, they believed him. They knew what was going on, but. It's a classic. You say nothing. You didn't see this. This didn't happen. You go back to work and you say nothing because they know what's going on. Because they're going up there 20 miles into the deep woods where nobody goes. Now, Sasquatch will give you so much territory, but at some point they go, okay, I'm drawing the line here. And apparently the line was over the hill because these guys, the artwork in my book, Sibylla Irwin did my artwork, and their hair is like, but what do you do with a story like that? And he described the footprints, and one of the footprints in the road, he described the swirls going around in a little circle and ending up in a dot, almost like one of those hypnotic wheels, where it goes round and round and round. It was a perfect circle that ended up making a print, but it started in the middle and worked its way out, and that was the print. And he saw that. And so how do you discount that when he's so meticulous with his observation? A Hollywood writer might come up with that, but it's a story like that, and it's just it was an awesome story, and that was a story. One of the stories that kind of freaked him out because I can't relive it anymore. I had to take a break, But that's just one of many that he's told up there. But there you go, the government cover up. Don't say you didn't see this, didn't happen. Now get back to work. And they all had to sign non-disclosure. They had to sign something.
That is on a professional level. And you know what? I've actually talked to people who work in that realm around here. I remember coming up and I was driving to find some rocks for my rock garden because we got a lot of pumice rocks up here. And I got pulled over by a conservation officer, and he asked, I had my son in the back in his car seat, and the guy was really cool. My son had a toy shark in one of the cup holders. And he goes, do you have any guns, fishing rods, or sharks in your vehicle right now? Right? So I asked him point blank, I said, so, seen any Sasquatch? Oh, well, yeah, I see them all the time. I said, no, I'm serious, have you? And he kind of just shakes his head. I said, I got a gifting site over on the 900 road. And he goes, where? I said, I can't tell you. He goes, why not? I said, because you won't tell me what you know. Right?
Awesome.
No, he never did. He never did.
Yeah.
But his new partner who moved into town, my son wanted a drum set last year. I buy a drum set, and lo and behold, it's the second conservation officer in town. So now I have it in, and hopefully it works.
Yeah. Here's the drawing that Sibylla did. I have to get used to this.
Other way.
Other way, yeah.
And up.
And over.
And over. Just running through the forest.
But it's just, what do you do with a story like that? Nobody, I'm talking about the hoaxers again, goes to that kind of detail. And he's got other tales, of similar type things. But this was 12 witnesses, and the guys knew it was Sasquatch running them off, but they, not to a man, none of them saw one, but they knew because of the visions put in their heads, whether you want to call it telepathy or hypnosis or whatever, they knew what it was. Because what else can push these trees, 100-foot trees, like reeds blowing in the wind? You know what I mean? So it's just phenomenal stuff. And I know a lot of people, and you've probably heard stories like this, but, he's got dozens of them, and the gifting and the things that he's had go on. I've had some gifting, this on the book. Did we ever discuss this book at all?
No, we haven't discussed part 2.
Yeah. These rocks on the log are representing people in my group. When I was leading an expedition, there's 6 rocks there. And I've been there. I led an expedition in Illinois, 2019. I went back in 2020 and 2021. And I'm going to go back this year in October. I'll go back, and I've had more gifting of rocks. I have something going on with a clan or an individual because these 6 rocks, that's me and 4 people that were on the expedition, and at the other end, down here, is my partner. There's a rock. There's 6 rocks there, 5 rocks, me and the 4 expedition goers, and him is on the other side because he had fallen and he couldn't make it down the ravine. So he stayed in the car in the parking lot while we went down the ravine one night. And the next night we went back because we had an awesome experience, and he stayed back at camp. So the next morning before I left, I went back to retrieve my cameras, and I found these rocks. And it's like, oh my gosh, there were 6 of us. There's 5 rocks. There's 1 pointed rock, which is me, the expedition leader, and the 4 expedition goers. And then there's Harold at the other end who was there, but he wasn't there. It just, the hair on the back of my neck stood up when I finally figured out what that was. So I was looking at it. That wasn't here last night. I put one of my trail cameras right at the end of this log, hoping to catch something, and I didn't. But there was that. And I went back 2020, and the rocks were still there. We went back this year, and it had been cleaned up. Harold finally made it down there. He went down to where he couldn't go. He was healed up and he could go. All those rocks were gone. There was 1 round rock that represented him that was at the other end. It was on the other end of the log, and it was just there. And I'm tall and skinnier than him. He's kind of short and round, and this is a short round rock, and my rock was like long and skinny. So it represented him, and they were acknowledging the fact that he finally made it down there, and they moved the rock from one end of the tree log to the other. You just, that sounds made up and too incredible, but you just go with the numbers and the serendipity of it all. What else would that be? And we're going back next year, this year in October, and I guarantee you there'll be something going on. And I've had other things going on in my head. I'm seeing things. They're communicating with me, which is a whole other story. But it's just mind-boggling, and you cannot tell me. People tell me stories all the time, but I'm experiencing this stuff, and you cannot tell me that this didn't happen. That's my reality. You can't take it away. You can poo-poo it all you want, but it happened to me. And it's the same thing with these other people that are telling me these stories. You go, I can't take that away from you. It happened to you. You're so sincere, and I can tell you're emotional. Some people are crying and upset when they're reliving these things because they are shaken to their core. I mean, they are creeped out, because they just can't believe that this gigantic creature can do these things.
Right.
But it happens, and you see it. You've had stuff go. I mean, what do? You listen to somebody goes, "Come on, Dave, you're full of crap, man." It's your reality. It happened.
You do. Were those rocks quartz by chance?
Pretty much limestone.
Okay.
There's no polished rock. There might have been some granite there, but they're really this ravine used to have water. So they're kind of tumbled, but it's real narrow. And we got, there's no quartz, because I know the thing about the crystals and stuff.
Right. Up here, people.
Not there, but
up here,
they're more concerned about the symbolism.
Right. Up here, people have been left a lot of quartz rocks.
We have a lot of quartz veins up there, don't you? You have a lot of quartz rock, period.
Lots of quartz, lots of pumice.
What's the other, something andreodite or something? It's looks like black flint.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You have up there.
Not in my area. We get these really cool greenish blue, aquamarine colored rocks that look like shale.
Mm-hmm. Well, my guy in BC,
so
that's a marble he found.
He found a marble.
He found a marble. Now he can find Native American or Native, Canadian, indigenous peoples artifacts all over, arrowheads, pottery and stuff like that. He finds it all the time on his original property where all these events were going on. And he was digging, and he got about a half a bucket full. He got tired and blew it off for the day. Went back the next morning. On top of this mound of dirt was that marble, and it wasn't there before. It was left there. And actually, he gave it to me. I have it. He gave it to me. That was left for him.
What do you think the gifts mean? Is it peace offering? Is it communication?
A little of both. Mostly communication, because I don't have any people that are getting gifted. And I have 3 habituation properties I monitor due to the kindness of the people that are living there, and then David up there in BC. It was a gift. In his entire life, he'd been gifted, and he just wasn't getting it. And so these creatures, these beings, got kind of forceful with him because, believe it or not, they were assigned to him. Zap, and that's this guy here on the book. This is the first book I wrote.
Right.
This is the creature that had been following him and his dad for 45, 50 years.
Incredible.
And trying to impart knowledge and wisdom.
Incredible. On that note, I'll get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here. We have Carter Buschardt here for another 30 minutes talking Sasquatch on Spaced Out Radio. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. More stories from Carter to finish off hour 2. When we return, you can find his books on Amazon. Spaced Out Radio. Bigfoot Talk. Next. All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right. So I'll show you this other mineral here. But he had been gifted for years and years and years. He just thought, how'd this dragonfly get in my house? So there's the
right there. Yeah. Oh wow.
And he's got another one that's similar to it. And then he sent me these other things that he'd broken. One of them's a bone. That's a bone fragment, and I can't tell if it's human or otherwise. Mm-hmm. And this is the mineral that seems to be, it's rather plentiful up there. I don't know what it is. It looks like black flint or black mica or something. It looks like flint.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
It's not obsidian, but
I got a couple questions coming for you from Sovereign Farts. And the first one is that just one of the ways they communicate with rocks? They give you a sign that they made a head count on your group?
Yes, it is. And in my first book, I write about that extensively. They can and they do count on occasion with knocks, rocks, claps, rock clacking, whatever. But that was the reason that hit me so hard was that was the exact number of people in my group, and it wasn't there the night before. And we found 3 footprints. They pushed a tree over on top of every print because we found them and cast them and let them sit and dry overnight. Went back the next morning.
Your teams need to master new technologies fast, and they need answers to pressing problems right now. Don't stress. With O'Reilly, your tech teams can learn what they need and get back to work fast. Visit O'Reilly.com for a demo. That's O'Reilly.com.
Are you ready for the big day? Not your big day, her big day, Valentine's Day. Celebrate the one who caught your heart. Go to FTD.com to save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15 on fresh, florist-delivered flowers for your sweetheart. See website for details. FTD. Give with meaning.
There was a tree, small little saplings, 10 or 12 foot little, small circumference, pushed over and covering them up. What else is that? They're communicating. Well, you found our prints. I kind of wish you hadn't. It's our fault for leaving them out there for you to find. I didn't know you were that smart, dear human. But yeah, they do count. I can give you all kinds of examples of how they count. They don't do it all the time, but they do count. And that was memorializing my group. 6 people, 6 rocks. Wasn't there? You can't tell me it's anything other than what it is. I don't believe in coincidences, so it's not a coincidence. Yes, they gift, and on occasion they do count and specify the number of people. I can give you all kinds of examples. It's fascinating stuff.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. All right, second question from Sovereign Farts. What are all the meanings and intentions of rock stacks, and how do you differentiate between human-made and Sasquatch made rock stacks or cairns?
That's actually a good question because you really can't. But like in events like this, when I had a group of 6 and we have 6 rocks and it's split up into 5 and 1, which was the exact body count of 5 people, me and 4 expedition people that paid money to BFRO to go on this expedition. And my partner who was helping me but couldn't get there, he was there, but he wasn't there. So you have to just kind of take the situation, but one of my reports that was sanitized had a guy and 2 other guys went camping when this COVID stuff started. They lived in Texas. They went up to Oklahoma to where they used to always go camping with his family. It was pouring rain. All they had was flashlights in their phones and some matches. So they had built a fire. They made a fire ring, and they burned, wood all night until the rain, quench the fire, so they went in and went to bed. About 1:39 in the morning, 1:39 exactly, because he had his phone and he saw what time it was, they heard this bam, bam, bam. And it goes, God, is that a woodpecker? That's right. Woodpecker, that's awful loud. It sounded like a tree knock, but it was explosive. It was right by their tent. Then they heard another one about 50 yards away. Bam, bam, bam. Then they heard another one probably, several hundred yards further on down the forest. Bam, bam, bam. They heard 5 sets of 3 knocks each. There was 3 guys. The next morning, they get up and after they stayed up all night because they were freaked out. They just stayed up all night and they huddled together and they finally went to sleep. Right before dawn, they woke up, got out, went out to the fire, started a fire. 3 rocks had been removed from the fire ring and put in the middle of the fire.
Wow. We got 10. What else? We got 15 seconds here, so I'm going to get you to hold.
What else is that other than counting? That's counting,
right? Thank you so much to Tits McGee, Fabster, Dry Toast, Patrick, Ed, Tom, and Todd for the super chats. Here we go, everybody. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, all of our archives are free. Just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit the subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read up on Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio. Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight, we got Carter Buschardt talking Sasquatch. He's sharing some great encounters and stories here. Carter, welcome back. Everybody can get his books on Amazon, and fantastic stories, by the way. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, they're mind-boggling. And, to that last question, they can and do count. I've got so many, like the story I just told you about the guys that had the 3 rocks taken out of their firing and put in the middle of who makes that up? I mean, he wouldn't know to make that. You know what I mean? He's just a simple guy. And they had the 3 rocks taken out of the ring and put in the middle of the fire. I mean, and they were telling each other, all the different clan members with the 3 knocks, as they were all through the woods, all through the forest during this rainstorm, and they happened about every 9 or 10 minutes, that they were counting and telling other Sasquatch in the forest, because it was raining, pouring rain, that there was 3 humans in the forest. I can't make another analogy than that, because that is just, if it wasn't for the 3 rocks being taken out at the end, I might have gone, 3 knocks is kind of typical. Things happen in groups of 3. But, I've got all kinds of stories of that stuff in both these books, But, they can count. They're not stupid. They're a lot smarter than we are.
Have anybody of these stories that you have taken reports on ever impacted you to the point where it just hit you for some reason, whether it was emotional, whether it was angry, whether it was any type of emotion?
When I found those 6 rocks, every time I tell this story, and I got it tonight, I get chills, and I do get emotional, because I looked at that, and it took me this was 300, here's another interesting caveat. When I saw that, about halfway home, back to Kansas City from Illinois, it suddenly hit me, because I didn't realize it right at first. I was going, well, God, that's weird. That wasn't there. Okay, they left some rocks. That's pretty cool. Now, there was a 10-hour window but this happened in the middle of COVID. And for them to have put those rocks there would have had to have happened sometime after 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And in October, it gets dark by 5. So there would have had to have been some humans walking through that forest in that 4-hour window during COVID, when nobody was going out anywhere. We never saw another human that day, period, at our campsite or in this site. So the odds of that being random, and people do stack rocks. I know nature lovers when they go hiking, they have stack rocks, and you see that a lot. It's very common, especially in Arizona. There's Stack Rock River in Arizona where people do this. You see hundreds of stacks. But anyway, halfway home, I was going, it hit me. I had to pull over and go, oh, my God. I called Harold. I told him. He's going, oh, my God. He thought the same thing. I didn't even have to convince him. I just told him what happened. He went, oh, my God, how many of there was this? So at the time that this was happening, that night, my wife, 350 miles away here in Kansas City, saw a blue orb flying through our bedroom. She not only saw it in its real state, but it also was reflected in the mirror in our bedroom on our dresser. So she saw it in 2 different places at the same time, reflection and the real thing. So it wasn't like a car driving by or, an anomaly, something, a firefly in our bedroom or anything. It flew through the bedroom and went into the bathroom and disappeared. At nearly the exact time that I was having my event that created these rocks. It was just, when you add all that up, you go, it just has to be that. Because I don't believe in coincidences. It was just, and she's, she is a sensitive. She's had a lot of paranormal things go on in her life, with her grandparents cleaning out her house and seeing disembodied spirits and people walking around that weren't there. She's seen a lot of stuff like that. But that is one of my seminal moments where I'm going, oh my God, I'm in a relationship because I'm having a relationship with these Sasquatch. They're communicating with me, and I see things in my head at night when I'm falling asleep, and it's the same scene over and over. I'm being shown a Sasquatch clan or two clans living together, and they're going about their daily life in this clearing, and there's walls. It's like a canyon or a ravine, and I can see the rocks. And those kind of dioramas when the old cartoons, when you see a guy walking, it looks like he's walking, but he's really just stepping and the world is turning. That kind of cartoon. That's what it looks like to me. And I see that probably 2-3 times a month, sometimes several times a week. And I saw it 3 weeks ago. The next night, I saw it, and we had a snowfall during the day, our first snowfall of the winter here. I saw the same diorama with snow. How do you see? I'm getting chills when I tell that story, because it's like, we're watching you. You got snow last night. We'll put some snow down here for you. I mean, it was just, what do you do with that? I'm not hallucinating. I'm not stoned. I'm not drunk. I'm not on any kind of psychotropic drugs or anything. It's just, sometimes you see things but it's the same thing over. And I just talked to a guy who called me about 3 weeks ago. He's got the same kind of stuff. He saw visions in his head for 2 months straight of a UFO that they drew on the ground in a glyph, and they put it's a whole nother story. But that stuff tells me I'm on the right track, and these people ain't yanking my chain, because how do you just make that stuff up? Where you see this landscape going by you, and I can see the juveniles walking around, and the moms, and the big boys, and the watchers, and they're all there just doing their little chores, gathering sticks, grabbing a mouse or a raccoon. And I'm just seeing a day in the life. And I see this often since that happened. Not before, but since that happened about 2 years ago, I've been seeing these things. And then they show me the snow. I mean, just, what? What do you do with that? You just go, that is some good stuff. That is like, and they're communicating. I don't care what someone's thinking this, like, well, that guy's all messed up. But no, I'm not. You're messed up because you don't believe me. No, there I go. I'm being hateful. But you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just stuff that you cannot. I can't talk myself out of it. And I try. I'm the first guy to try to find fault with my theory. I'll try to find, maybe I mistake. Maybe I overthought that. Maybe that's not really what. I will always try, because when I put something out there and say it, I've already gone through that process, and I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fall on the sword with whatever I'm telling you. And that's one of them. And that's a seminal moment for me. It's just, and then David sent me that marble, and I just, little things are just starting to add up,
Very true. I want to ask you, do you have any reports that you have taken that people have been scared out of the forest or almost been threatened by Sasquatch?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. And one was in Iowa, and I was there, but I did not hear because I was out in the field at night on a night op. But this couple, and I don't remember who they are, they had rocks and tree limbs, not big ones, but stuff thrown off their tent, huffs, puffs, grunts, and they had camped away from everybody because they wanted the experience. Well, they got one. And I think they got a little bit too close to an area that they deemed to be off limits. The Sasquatch had deemed, you're getting too close to my little area here. We don't really want you here. And so they were attempting to drive them out. But they were so scared they couldn't move, and they got on a radio and called us, and we went over there, and we helped them move their tent about 11 o'clock at night. They said, we can't stay here anymore. We got to go somewhere. So we brought them into camp where everybody else was. But that's the only one that I've really heard, firsthand while I was there. And, everybody else was out. They had just driven in. They were too tired to go out on a night op with everybody. They wanted to crash, and it was like a Friday night, so they were going to go out the next night. So they were just crashing and just relaxing. But and sure enough, we could see the rocks in the branches that were there after we went back the next morning. we saw all the stuff laying around that was thrown at them. Some pretty good sized rocks, baseball size and smaller, branches, twigs, but they were pelting them and that kind of stuff. And they wanted them out of there. And, good for them. They didn't totally freak out and run screaming into the woods like some people I've been with have done. And that's a good way to get your butt hurt. And not by a Sasquatch, but just by running off the side of a cliff or something. So that's the only one I really, I've taken. A lot of people will mention bluff charging and stuff, that they've been bluff charged. But it only happened once or twice, and they kind of blew it off. They knew what it was. Some of them thought it was hogs or a bear because they didn't see it, but they heard it and sensed it. So, but yeah, I hear from other people that that's a regular routine. If they want you out of the area, that's what they're going to do. They're going to bluff charge. They're going to do chest popping, growls, grunts, whistles, and shake trees and throw stuff. If they don't want you in a certain area, I have not taken any report ever, nor have I heard of one that's even credible of anybody being harmed in any way, shape, or form. That's not what they're here to do. They're not here to hurt us. They're very interested in us. They love to watch us, especially women and children. They love to watch, the birth givers and the nurturers, interacting with their children because they got families too. So they're very intrigued by us, but they don't want anything to do with us. It's, what is it? As Einstein said, what was it? Spooky action at a distance. That's a famous Einstein quote. He's talking about, quarks and black holes and things like that. But it's, they do that kind of stuff, but they're not going to hurt you. Knock on wood, they ain't going to hurt you.
Are there rogue groups of these creatures that are violent?
I would say there probably are. There's still no reports. Now, if you want to get into missing 411, where are some of these people going? Some of them mention hairy man, bear man, how did these little children get 15 miles away with no shoes and maybe no clothes, perfectly unharmed? But there are groups, allegedly, and they are hinted at that maybe they are responsible for some of these missing people, missing 411. If you take a transparency of the cave systems, take a transparency of the Sasquatch sightings, and a transparency of the missing 411 people, you lay them on top of each other, voila, they kind of match. So the Sasquatch live underground. If they're taking these people off into another dimension, who knows what's going on, but that is a theory I would buy into, that there could be a rogue group. Just like there's, good and bad humans. Most of us are good, peace-loving people, and we don't want to harm our fellow man. But there are some people that have no, respect for life. Look at the prisons are full of them. Guys that go, pop a cap and kill somebody just because, well, I felt like it. He pissed me off. He looked at my shoes, and I think he was going to steal them, so I shot him. Well, whatever. There's all kinds of bad apples. But I think, they are really a peaceful, benevolent people as a rule. But I think there's bad apples in every group. Absolutely. I wouldn't say no,
I look at it as much like the killer whales and the orcas in the ocean where people talk about these rogue pods that will try and sink boats and they don't care what they kill as long as they kill something. And I think there would be groups of Sasquatch like that, because let's face it, in the animal kingdom, there are animals thrown out of their pods and their groups all the time.
Yeah.
It happens with wolves. It happens with bears, coyotes, you name it.
Yeah. If you're not part of the group, you're part of the problem. You're out of here. And I can't argue that at all. I believe it to be true. Knock on wood, lucky for me, I have not encountered one. Yet I've never been in a situation where I feel threatened. A little scared maybe, but not threatened. Just like, okay, I don't, but I've never been in that situation. But I guarantee you they exist. There's bad apples everywhere.
Do you believe then that people have been harmed by this creature that we know as Sasquatch?
I don't have any reports of that. I've got people who, told me that their uncle told them, that their grandpa told them, second, third-hand story. But there's nobody that has, and look at the people that have encountered these beings, Justin Smea, who shot one and shot two, and they weren't even being threatened. They just shot them because they were there, and, they didn't understand them. They just shot them. I don't know of anybody that has been harmed. I don't know anybody who knows anybody who says they know somebody who's been harmed. You hear them, but I think it's more false rhetoric than anything else, because I consider myself to be kind of in the middle of things, and I think I would hear things if that was going on. I haven't had it. I haven't heard it yet. And there's not a story that you can tell me. Even Albert Osman, the guy who was apparently picked up in a sleep bag and carried over a mountain range, for 2 or 3 hours and abducted by a group of Sasquatch. He thought he was there to be a mate or a plaything for his kids and stuff. He wasn't harmed, and they had him trapped, and there was, a dozen Sasquatch around. They could have done whatever they wanted. They didn't. They didn't do it, So there's no stories that are verifiable of that. And I hope it's true.
Okay, we only got about 6 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Carter Buschardt is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I want to ask you, in regards to the fact that we still don't know what this creature is, have you had encounters or reports with people who have had it just vanish in front of them?
I had one. That my first foray into the other world and away from the apers. I was leading an expedition here in Missouri.
7 iconic housewives from 4 different cities.
Look at this water.
We're gonna give them something to talk about.
Vacation at Turks and Caicos.
It's a party now.
The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Are you ready for the big day? Not your big day, her big day. Valentine's Day. Celebrate the one who caught your heart. Go to FTD.com to save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15 on fresh, florist-delivered flowers for your sweetheart. See website for details. FTD. Give with meaning.
2013, 14, and I was scanning the woods, and we were looking for a group that had been lost. It was about 11 o'clock at night. We had a group that was separated from us, and the radios were going bad. We couldn't communicate. Long story short, I saw this heat signature coming through the forest. I thought, oh, my God, thank goodness they're here. I found them, guys. And I'm looking, and it's not them. It's a Sasquatch. And it comes around this corner, takes 1 step, 2 steps. On that second step, poof, it just vanished. The heat signature just exploded, and it looked like there was a Sasquatch smoke ring. Somebody had blown a Sasquatch smoke ring, because when the image just exploded, it left this little ring, an outline of a humanoid shape, and then it just dissipated into the woods and was gone. And right then I went, okay, not a dumb ape. There's more to these guys than anybody thinks, and I'm baptized right now. That was my baptism. So yeah, I've seen it myself, and that's what got me where I am right now. Is that you cannot tell me that stuff ain't going on, because it is, and it is a real thing. What do you do?
Obviously, you look for natural answers to this stuff. I mean, that's what investigation is all about. What were you thinking when you ruled out any point of natural answers?
Well, of course, I knew myself. I wasn't high. I wasn't drunk. I'm not on any kind of anti-hallucinatory drugs. I'm not a paranoid schizophrenic or a schizophrenic. When you can hallucinate, you can hallucinate things if you have a couple of those specific diagnoses. And so, but I'm not in either of those categories. So I said, well, I have some very nice FLIR night vision equipment. It's in perfect working order. That wasn't a malfunction. I tried it over and over. I know what I saw. It wasn't anything that I could have mistaken, like, a swarm of fireflies or any kind of stupid stuff like that. So I eliminated, and it was quite easy at that time because it was such a shock to my system, because I was with a bunch of very conservative flesh and blood only guys, BFRO people. And, I won't mention names, but they're just very close-minded and rigid in their mindset, And so I solved it within about 20 minutes of thinking about it. I was going, I just saw this thing vanish in front of me. What the heck? How did he do that? And it doesn't matter how he did it, and I saw it. I wish I was recording, but I didn't want to, as most investigators, I did not want to run down my batteries trying to change batteries on a thermal camera at night, when you're in the forest. Maybe your hands are sweaty and it bugs, and it's just, irritating. So you save batteries when you can, when you don't think you need them. So I wasn't recording. And by the time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it clicked. It was over. So, and I'm a good example of, guys that, how come you don't get a good picture? How come you don't get a clear shot? Well, because you're shocked and the hands are shaking and you get a blurry photo. Well, of course, because you can't believe what's happening. So I eliminated all the possibilities. And we reenacted it the next morning. We went back out and reenacted it and got the footage, the distance, the height, all of that. We reenacted the whole thing. And a couple of guys there who I know were sympathetic with my position that there's more to it. And it was all like, that was simple. That's it. So now what am I going to do? And then I started hearing more stories, and I've been affected by infrasound. I was hallucinating things that I knew could not be, yet they were there. And my wife was with me. And that's a whole other story, which we don't have time for. But, when I saw that, it was all over for me. It could be nothing else than there's other things going on. They have skill sets we just can't explain.
I want to get one question in here as we got 1 minute left. Any reports of them being in residential areas of cities?
I took a report about a year ago. And actually, that's one of the first times Matt has called me in a long, long time. A lady in Parkville woke up one morning. She heard something. Didn't know what it was. She heard something. When she got up the next morning when it was daylight, there was muddy footprints down her driveway. They're about 17 inches long. I've got photos and everything. I didn't file a report because the lady did not want me to file a report, but she wanted somebody to come over. And there was about 10 or 12 footprints going down her driveway, down the side of her house, into her backyard, and the footprints went across the yard, over a fence, and into some woods.
Incredible.
Residential, the duplexes all over the place. It's a cul-de-sac of nothing but houses, and it took a shortcut.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Unbelievable. Carter, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. We got to do it again soon. I'm really enjoying our conversations each time, my friend. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I've enjoyed it, and buy the books. You can get these books. I have my own website, www.relichominid.com. These are all color books, glossy paper.
Beautiful.
And anyway.
Beautiful. We'll see you in Vegas at the SOR party. Swamp Dweller and Super Duker next on Spaced Out Radio. Hour 3 coming up right after this.
See you, Dave.
Great show, buddy. Great show.
Awesome. We hadn't even scratched the surface. There's so much stuff going on.
I'll get you rebooked around May.
Okay. Yeah. I've got my own personal abduction story. I don't know if I even told you that.
Oh, well, we'll save that one for May or the Vegas trip.
Yeah, that happened when I was 10, but I found out 30 years later that it had happened. I had no idea. I will. My wife's real paranoid about COVID. That's the only reason she probably might not go, but I don't care. I think I want to try to come hang out with you guys.
We want you. We want you there. We got to play.
I want to take your money.
Good. Good. I want to take yours. Bud, I got to run here, but we'll talk soon, okay?
All right, guy. See ya.
See you, bud. Love him. Carter Buschardt. I'll be right back, guys. I got to hit the loo. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Dave is here. He hasn't disappeared. Jeremy Jones, what's happening? The book Rainbow Six is fantastic. Hi, Larry A. How are you? Excuse me. Yes, my hair is getting long. Big thank you to Murray, Todd, Tom, Ed, Patrick, Dry Toast, Fabster, and Tits McGee for the awesome super chats tonight. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to support what we do in Vegas on this show. And you know what? Vegas is going to be great, too. I hope to see you all here and there. Here we go, everyone. Let's get right to it.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Really appreciate you tuning us in as we continue on with tonight's show in Hour 3. And, of course, we say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gange. Gange is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is that time once again in the night where we get a little spooky. We head into the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on a tour of another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I've only told this story to one of my friends. I've never thought much of what I saw until afterward, when thinking about certain parts of my experience that couldn't be explained. So I told my best friend about my experience, and he said that I likely saw a Bigfoot. We both had a good laugh about it. Now, let me explain to you a little bit about myself. I grew up hunting in the Blue Mountains in Oregon my entire life. I've seen every kind of animal that roams the forest there, from mountain lions and black bears to elk and deer. I'm very confident about being on my own in the woods. I've solo hiked, camped, and have taken several trips to places like Bighorns in Wyoming. I enjoy getting away from the modern world as often as I can. What I'm getting at is that I do not fear to be alone in the mountains or the woods. In September of 2019, I traveled to Washington State for an archery hunt on the Washington side of the Blue Mountains. The tag I was carrying was for a buck deer. I wasn't camping in the mountains, but would drive to them around 2 a.m. every morning and 2 p.m. every evening. From 2 a.m., I'd hike up and hike down at around 9:30 a.m. In evenings, I'd hike up around 2 p.m. and be down about an hour after dark. From where I'd parked my truck, it was a 6-mile hike up the mountain to where I had set up a tree stand. 6 miles of hiking in the dark. I opened up my phone to look at the GPS to make sure I was traveling in the right direction. The first 4 days of this routine were pretty rough but amazing at the same time. Getting used to waking up early just to put your legs through hell is hard to become accustomed to. But the views when the sun would rise were worth the burn, and it's always amazing to see the wildlife roaming carefree at sunrise. On a hillside 600 yards away to the east, I would see a herd of elk briskly moving their way toward a draw. the deer would start moving in the field directly in front of me. I didn't have any bucks coming close enough to send an arrow, but it was nice seeing them interact without a clue of my presence. I saw a sow and 2 cubs one evening before I left the tree stand. It was a pretty great experience so far. The 5th day in the early morning is when I experienced something that at the time didn't seem all that weird, but recollecting my thoughts later, it is something I cannot explain. Following the same routine as the previous days, I got to the same place where I parked my truck at around 2 a.m. I made sure I had everything I would need in my day pack: paracord, extra knife, batteries, flashlight, a bottle of water, a couple of granola bars, and a Ziploc bag with a lighter. I always figured it's better to have something and not need it than need something and not have it. I strapped the day pack on, grabbed my bow, checked my phone to make sure it was on silent and the screen was dimmed, and headed toward the stand. One thing hunters know is that when you are walking to your spot, you try your best to be quiet and not to use any light as to not spook any animals in the area, as well as choose a good route that doesn't cross main game trails, and make sure the wind is always in your favor. I was wearing the same hunting attire as I was the day before, and being it was 95 degrees during the day, the smell in my shirt was getting hard to hide. I used scent blocker spray, but it was time to wash my shirt when I got back after a morning hunt. Anyways, back to my hike up the mountain. It was overcast this morning, so the moon was hidden, which made trekking a little bit more difficult. My route wasn't too hard of a route to follow in the dark after you got past the initial field you cross. Then you get to a draw and follow that up until it splits. At the split, you take a left and follow the draw up. At the top of the draw, you go left one more time and down a small decline to where the stand is. I had all but memorized the feeling of the slants and angles under my boots, so it wasn't that difficult navigating. I had just reached the second split and stopped to catch my bearings and breath and to let my legs rest. As I'm standing there in the dark, I had a sudden urge to look to my right. It was more of the feeling of being watched than just an urge. I looked over and I see a dark spot about 10 yards away. I let my eyes adjust to it and realized that there was an animal standing there. I stood still and tried to focus as hard as I could, but being it was very dark and no moonlight was around, I just could not see much but a hazy scene. The definition of the animal slowly stood out in my eyes. It was on all fours just standing there. It wasn't making noise. It wasn't moving. Just standing there as frozen in time as I was. My first initial reaction when my eyes focused was that this thing was an elk. It was a big elk, so it must have been a bull. I couldn't be sure because it was dark, but nothing else could have been that size. It was too tall, and not thick enough to be one of the black bears I saw in the area. We both probably stood there for 5 minutes with no movement. Then it started slowly moving parallel to me, still about 10 yards away. Now I don't know if my eyes were playing tricks on me or not, but it looked like it stood up on 2 feet when it started to slowly move away. I stood there thinking, that's another hunter, not an elk. A tall hunter at that, but another hunter for sure. I was thinking to myself that no other hunter would be out this far where I am at 3:30 in the morning. Trying to figure out why another hunter would be here got me coming up with another reason for what I'm seeing. Maybe the elk turned and was walking directly away from me, so it looked like it was walking on 2 feet. Maybe it was too dark to see the front legs. Maybe I need rest and I'm too tired to be out here at 3 in the morning every day. I'm going to refer back to the beginning of my story where I stated that I didn't think anything of it at the time. At 3:30 a.m., when I saw this elk, hunter, or whatever it was, I logically just told myself that my eyes were playing with me, and that it was just an elk that stood up and was walking away. That's a logical way to explain it at the moment anyway. That's why I didn't think much of it being weird. It was when I retold what happened to my friend that, in my mind, things started to be interesting. Second, the fact that I really did convince myself that it was a hunter walking.
Socks are the #1 most requested item in homeless shelters. Underwear is the second, shirts are third.
At Bombas, socks were first, made with comfortable details for everyday wearing. Then underwear and shirts too, all designed to perfectly fit. At Bombas, every item you purchase means you're donating an essential clothing item to someone in need. One comfortable clothing item for you, one donated to someone in need. Bombas, comfort for all. Get 20% off your purchase at bombas.com/comfy.
A story of the rose is a story of love. From farms to our florists, and right into the arms of sweethearts savoring a date night in. Best friends showing their galentines how much they adore them. And those giving themselves a little love. Go to FTD.com and save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15. And celebrate your love story with iconic roses, florals, and gifts from FTD.
Is kind of concerning. Humans walk like no other animal on this planet, and I clearly told myself at that moment, after being startled, that it was a tall human walking, even though that it wasn't. The last thing that creeps me out is that there were no sounds in the forest. It was dead silent. The animal, or whatever it was very slowly and very cautiously walking until my eyes could not see it anymore. I stood there for another 5 minutes trying to figure out what I saw, and then slowly moved on and left whatever the heck that was behind. I cannot explain this occurrence and do not want people thinking I'm crazy or that I'm some sort of Sasquatch believer, but I think that is what I saw. I can't explain it in any other way.
Very, very creepy indeed. Imagine finding yourself face to face with a Sasquatch. Well, one dude has the ability to do it, and that is our man, Super Duke Sullivan from World Bigfoot Radio. Let's continue the Bigfoot talk. All right, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Do us a favor, if you follow this channel, go over to World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube as well, and click subscribe on Duke's channel. How you doing, buddy?
I'm just blown away by the amazing packed with Sasquatchness of this great big old sandwich you're dealing out here tonight. Oh my God.
It is a big Bigfoot sandwich tonight.
Wow. First, your guest is amazing and 100% accurate as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, isn't he? Isn't he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Carter's got his information down. Yeah.
And you know what? The one thing I like about Carter, and the reason why I think he is, and Duke, you'll understand when I say this, there are very few perfect Bigfoot guests, is he has his own opinions, but he also understands that his opinions mean nothing. And he goes right where the evidence takes him. And not enough for doing that.
I've changed mine several times now. That's why like nothing is carved in stone. Here's what I currently believe because of all the evidence I have. It could change when more evidence comes in. That's just the nature of science.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Fill me in. What's happening in the news today?
Well, in the Bigfoot news that's near to us, a guest who's been on your show twice recently in the Bigfoot world would be Robert Bigfoot in Germany, Boston.
Yes.
Currently in the hospital.
Oh, no.
Having some rather serious problems and could use some prayers for him. And we should be able to get him back out again. But he has some weird issues with his... I don't know how the hell he did it, but he managed to twist his intestine somehow.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's like, usually that doesn't happen to humans unless you're a power lifter or you're getting punched out by the Hulk or something. So I don't know what he did, but he's really good at getting hurt. So he found some new way to do it, apparently.
Oh, well, thoughts and prayers and some healing for him because Robert's a good guy, man. We got to get him back on this show.
Yeah, he's a superhero. Plus, he's got a lot more stuff to talk to you guys about, so you definitely want to get him back again. And the other thing, I want the audience to make a decision on this. Next Tuesday when I'm on, what do you want me to talk about? Because I now have my minions running around scrambling to find me really cool things to talk about, and they're now trying to compete with each other and see who has the best stuff. And Team A has decided that Mount St. Helens and Ape Canyon needs to be talked about more.
Let's do it.
And Team B says that, well, really you should cover the two Bigfoot reports from Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone.
Oh, do I have a say on this? Because
Dave, throw your vote too.
I love the story about Ape Canyon at Mount St. Helens. Now, Ape Canyon, we should say, actually got wiped out during the 1980 explosion.
Yep. My upcoming guest on Sunday's grandfather had a Bigfoot sighting on Mount St. Helens at a little lake there that also no longer exists back in the 1920s. So if you want to hear about that one, you can tune in to my show on Sunday, because Kelly Shaw from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch is finally going to be on somebody's show. I had to throw a lasso around him and put him in an arm lock, and it took about 3 years, and I finally got him on the show. And oh man, is it going to be awesome. So don't miss that one. But there's two other reports there. There's not only the actual Ape Canyon report, there's a more recent one of a guy who something was chasing him, and he just kind of skied into oblivion, and they never found him. And that was also in the same area, in addition to a lot of the other weird reports there. But then on the other hand, you've got two superheroes of the old, Eastern Wild West, Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. And Davy Crockett saw one when he was on his way to the Alamo, and Daniel Boone got into a fight with one and had to shoot it to save his kid from being killed by it. So those are pretty epic stories, too.
Well, we can save them for Tuesday.
Well, tonight we've got an even different one. What we're going to do tonight is one called The Wild Man of the Woods. And this actually comes up. The last one, if you guys remember, we were talking about the Man Mountain story that came out of the Okefenokee Swamp in 1829. This one is from 1846, and it's out of Arkansas. And you can find this in the exploresouthernhistory.com and subpage Arkansas Wild Man. Exactly what was the Arkansas Wild Man? A real creature or an elaborate hoax? The truth may never be known. Many believe the stories of Bigfoot, a gigantic hairy man-like creature with huge feet, originated in the Pacific Northwest. This is not precisely correct. Early settlers of the South reported encounters with strange Sasquatch-like monsters long before the first recorded sightings in Washington and Oregon. As they pushed their settlements deep into the woods and their hunts even deeper, the early frontier people of the South often ran up against mysteries that defied explanation. One of the most bizarre involved a series of events surrounding a creature called the Wild Man by newspapers of the 1840s. And again, remember, they had not coined the phrase Bigfoot and would not for over 100 years after this was going on. So that term just didn't exist. So they had local names for it. Wild Man was one they liked to use. When they became aware of the fact that gorillas existed, everything became an escaped gorilla. When we go back and talk about Daniel Boone, they were calling it a Yahoo back then. So they all had different names, different time periods. So anyway, the earliest known recorded sightings took place in February and March 1846 in the Crowley Ridge area of eastern Arkansas. Stories about the creature's appearance were carried in newspapers across the nation, with the Baltimore Sun reporting on March 13th, 1846, that, quote, his track measures 22 inches. His toes are as long as a common man's fingers, and in height and make he is double the usual size. I take that to mean he's probably around 12 feet, 10 feet, somewhere in there. Other reports followed, with a second surge of news coverage taking place in 1851. The New Hampshire Patriot and State Gazette reported on May 29th of that year that an expedition was about to leave Memphis to hunt for the, quote, Wild Man. The monster was said to be of, quote, gigantic size and covered with hair. The same newspaper followed with a page one account on June 5th, quoting the Memphis Inquirer as to its source for a report that the Wild Man had been seen chasing a herd of cattle. Never heard that one before, huh? So he was of gigantic stature, the body being covered with hair, and the head with long locks that fairly enveloped his neck and shoulders. The Wild Man, after looking at them deliberately for a short time, turned and ran away with great speed, leaping from 12 to 14 feet at a time. And yeah, we've measured, track lines where steps are that far apart, so he didn't even have to be running to be making steps like that. The Inquirer account noted that the monster had been seen in St. Francis, Greene, and Poinsett counties for 17 years, a statement that indicates that now lost reports may have been made as early as 1834. Colonel David C. Cross and Dr. Sullivan, no relation of Memphis, were said to be organizing an expedition to search for the creature. This may well have been the first Bigfoot hunt in American history. No written details of the result of their search have yet been found, but certainly could exist. Another round of accounts appeared in the nation's newspapers in 1856. On January 3rd of the year, the Pittsfield Sun reported, quote, "A wild man, 7 feet high, is stated to be roaming through the great Mississippi bottoms in Arkansas. Numerous travelers and hunters have asserted that they have seen him, but none have been able to get near enough to give particulars concerning the strange being." Not all accounts, however, were from the swamps of early eastern Arkansas. A fairly bizarre report appeared in May 1856, reporting a sighting in April on the Upper Red River and noting that the creature had also been seen in northern Louisiana. And, of course, my last guest was in Louisiana, where they call the Sasquatch the Sulkaloo. This one I've reported on before. This is a fairly scary one. So, according to the version, which appeared in the Wisconsin Patriot of May 10th, 1856, the wild man was spotted breaking the ice of a frozen lake. He was, quote, "covered with hair of a brownish cast," unquote, and was described as being, quote, "well-muscled," unquote. A party of men from Louisiana had gone into the wilderness on horseback to find the creature and decided to try and capture it. Oh, this never ends well.
No.
One man from his group had gone ahead of his comrades and decided to try, God, why do people think this? Decided to try and take the monster on his own. This was a real bad idea. So soon as the wild man saw the horse and the rider, he rushed frantically toward them and in an instant dragged the hunter to the ground and tore him in a most dreadful manner, scratching out one of his eyes and injuring the other so much that his comrades despaired of the recovery of his sight, and also bit large pieces out of his shoulder and various parts of his body. And perhaps the most bizarre part of the story, the wild man supposedly grabbed, made use of the injured man's horse, and it doesn't give details here, but the original account says it grabbed the mane of the horse, threw its leg over it, kicked it, and the horse took off, and it rode the horse off into the woods again. It had ripped the saddle right off the horse, and the saddle was pretty secure to the horse. Apparently, he just grabbed the strap underneath the horse and ripped the saddle right off of it. The hunter's friends set off in pursuit, joined by a party of Choctaw Indians that happened to be in the area. The chase led up into the Ouachita Mountains, at that point covered in snow from a particularly brutal winter, where the pursuers somehow failed to capture their elusive prey. Stories of gigantic hair-covered man-like creatures are told in Arkansas to this day. Notably in the Ouachita and Ozark Mountains and in the swamps of Mississippi and notably in the Ouachita and Ozark Mountains and swamps of the Mississippi and Red Rivers. And, of course, this is the area where the famed Boggy Creek Monster was one of the modern manifestations. And I got to give credit at this point to the amazing Stephen Hill, the Sulphur River Sasquatch hunter, who dug up this account for me, because he's like, hey, promote my area. Well, yeah, this is a really early one, and it's really scary. So, okay, yeah, this is a good one. Thank you, Stephen Hill.
Always the case. Always the case. You just don't feed the Wookiees, man. You just don't feed the Wookiees. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, some of those Wookiees had bad attitudes, apparently. When I was interviewing Kelly yesterday, I mentioned that he had actually done a report of one of the earliest reports out of my area, 5 miles away from where I'm sitting here right now, 1896. John Stoner was riding to Missoula on his horse, and an angry Sasquatch jumped him and tried to drag him off his horse. And he managed to club it a couple times and get away, apparently. But when he got to town, he made the report. That was 5 miles from Missoula, where I'm sitting right now.
Terrible. Terrible. Super Duke, where can people find your channel?
World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube. You can find my other social media groups, Montana Bigfoot Project on Facebook and World Bigfoot Central on MeWe.
Wow. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. And you're always...
Got more good stuff for next week.
Look forward to it, bud. Look forward to it. Super Duke, he always has a cape on underneath his mullet, and that's the way we love him. World Bigfoot Radio, make sure you hit subscribe to that channel. Oh, he's always laughing, too. Coming up next, it's the Dave 101. Death threats in the Bigfoot world? We're going to get to it, along with Shirky Poo's news and more right after this. You are hilarious, man. You are hilarious.
Well, you got to be entertaining, or they won't pay attention to the story, and they won't learn anything. So, that's something you're great at too. Dave.
Oh God,
you got that mastered. You got that totally mastered. The Daverino, the little Daveroo. He's got the awesome hair and the cool beard too.
I got to stop paying you so much.
If you started paying me, I might actually praise you more. Well, listen, buddy, it has been an absolutely brutal day, so I am going to jump off now. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you all again next Tuesday. And for those of you that show up on Sunday, special treat, Kelly Shaw never goes on anybody's show, and this guy was on Survivor Man Bigfoot, too. So you're going to want to tune in for this one.
If I called Kelly, he'd come on. I know. I had him on years ago.
Years and years ago. Yeah, they've about the last 5 years decided they don't do shows anymore. That's why it's been so hard to get them on.
You know what? I'm going to call him. Hey,
do it.
Hey, Kelly. All right, buddy. You take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Love me some Super Duke there on World Bigfoot Radio. Excuse me. Charge. That's right, Sovereign. Fart hard, Duke. Fart hard, buddy. See, that's funny. Excuse me. That's funny. That just cracks me up. No idea, Double Tim. No idea. Mm-hmm. Where are we here? We're going to move that one up there. And that one right there. Now, I'm going to tell you, when we get to the news tonight, Gail is like embarrassed by the first two stories. Shirky Poo didn't want to run them, so make sure you all point out to Shirky Poo that you love these stories. Shirky Poo. I know she's listening. She's always listening. By the way, Fap, Shirky Poo has a crush on you. It's true. There you go. Shirky Poo. Good old Fapster. It's all ego, Nicola. It's all ego. Big thank you to Tits McGee, Fapster, Dry Toast, Patrick, Ed Clater, Tom, Todd, and Murray F. for the amazing super chats tonight. We very much appreciate your love and support of this show. Thank you to all the veterans out there who are tuning us in. You always have a safe home here on Spaced Out Radio. And, of course, all the regulars, you guys are amazing, awesome. Don't forget, Lynn Wallington, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, on Saturday and Sunday, followed by the After Hours show right after with Gemma Jade, Big Willie, and the fedora-wearing John Hudson, and the newbie, Thin Lizzie Borden. Here we go, final half hour. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again for a little rant and rave at Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
All right, let's get right to it because the Bigfoot community should be embarrassed for itself, especially right now. Why? David Paulides, the head of Missing 411 and the Can-Am Missing Project, a man who works very, very hard. He's a friend of this show's. Recently,
Ray Magliozzi here. I'd like to carry more parts, but I barely have room to think in my garage. Luckily, eBay Motors has all the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them. Can't imagine stocking that many parts. Where would I get all those shelves? eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Are you ready for the big day? Not your big day, her big day. Valentine's Day. If not, you better rush to FTD.com to order early and save on a winning combination of flowers and gifts for Monday, February 14th. Bold blooms and gifts are the perfect way to celebrate the one who caught your heart, so go to FTD.com and save 15% through February 14th with code CRUSH15 on fresh, florist-delivered flowers when you order early. See website for details. FTD. Give with meaning.
like yesterday, had to cancel an appearance at Squatch Fest in Washington State. Why? Well, let's tell you. This is his announcement. It is with enormous sorrow that I announce I won't be attending the conference in Kelso, Washington at the end of this month. I received an email outlining a serious threat to Angie, who is his wife, and me, David, both at the conference at our hotel. The letter outlined a threat coming from a section of the Bigfoot community who are not stable individuals. The email was given to the conference organizers, and they give it to the Cowlitz County Sheriff and the police chiefs of Longview and Kelso. I spoke to a private security firm that regularly provides security for the event. They told me that this was the first time that they could ever remember where law enforcement refused to supply deputies and officers for an event. They didn't understand why. We live in very, very crazy times where life doesn't seem to be valued by some groups of individuals. Without a law enforcement present at the event, and out of a need to protect Angie, myself, and attendees, I canceled my appearance at Squatch Fest. I feel sorry for the people who had made plans to attend and visit with us. This threat came late in the process, and I didn't have time to rally the support we needed for a safe event. This won't happen again. I appreciate each and every one of you. David Politis. How sad is that? Somebody from within the Bigfoot community who does not like his work, allegedly, has decided to make death threats against Politis. Now, David Politis is a very, very controversial figure. He's an ex-police officer, detective, worked 20 years on the force. He has worked with MUFON. He has worked on the missing 411 cases. And you know what? The strength he has shown to continue his work after the passing of his son, Ben, last year, who was his best friend and co-owner of Can-Am Missing. It's amazing that he is still going. Now, the fact that someone would openly threaten him really should be a black eye on the Bigfoot community. Now, I know there was people like Steve Ishdahl from How to Hunt, as well as Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Society researchers and organizers, Nate Rudd and his team, who are willing to provide security for Politis, which he politely turned aside, preferring law enforcement handle it, being former law enforcement of himself. But what does this say about how unstable the Sasquatch community is? It's not very cool. It's not professional. And this is what happens when you don't have a rule book, you don't have a governing committee, and you have people who, just because they don't agree with you, are out to do you harm. Look, the Can-Am project that David has been working on the last number of years, and the books he has written, are highly controversial, as I stated. It involves a lot of weird happenings. It involves real people. People who have disappeared, vanished, gone missing, without a trace, never to be seen again. Sometimes their bodies even reappear. It also takes pot shots at forest rangers, the rules for national parks where they do not have a count of how many people go missing annually, law enforcement, government officials. He's on very, very many radars. And rightfully so. Somebody has to call out the information. Somebody has to take the opportunity to say, this is what's going on. Then there is a part of the community that is very jealous of David Politis. Why? Because he's making a career off of this. He's making money. And for some reason, anybody who makes money in the paranormal community, in the Bigfoot community, the cryptid community, the UFO community, they are hated for it. Personally, I applaud him for being able to make a career of something that he loves. And that goes for anybody, whether they're making a few $100s a month or they're making $200,000 plus a year. I think it's fantastic if you get to do what you want for your livelihood. The idea that someone would take the time, because of disagreements with whom he is or what David Politis stands for, is obnoxious, it's obtuse, it's wrong, of course it's illegal. And everybody in the UFO community the Bigfoot community should be banding together regarding this to find out who the individual or individuals are, if they are indeed part of the Sasquatch community. If they are part of that community, they need to be banished. They should not be allowed at events. They should not be allowed to speak. And it should be put all over social media that they were giving death threats. We don't need that in this community. We don't need anybody taking pot shots like that. You can disagree all you want. I don't agree with people who are conducting opinion over science. I don't believe that Sasquatch is a monkey or the great ape. And I think anybody who limits themselves to that is not doing anything heroic for moving the entire species and research forward. We have to be better than this. And it's funny because all we want in this field is credibility. We want credibility to say Sasquatch is real, UFOs are real, ghosts are real. We want our neighbors, our friends, our family, our coworkers, and anybody who will listen to believe us. Yet, when garbage like this is pulled, it shoots down the entire community for being the oddball rejects that many of us are, myself included. It doesn't do us any good. Now, we can only hope that this will be investigated to the full extent of the law, and hopefully the person who did send this email does get prosecuted one way or another. Whether it's a fine or more, that's up to a judge. But it is asinine to think that it is coming down to death threats in the Sasquatch community. David Paulides is one of many voices of what is going on. The only thing he is guilty for is making a living off of something he enjoys researching. He lets the evidence take him where he needs to go, like any good researcher should. It doesn't matter whether you believe in the woo, or whether you believe in your opinion, or you believe in science. That's what it's all about. And if you have a hard time accepting that, you need to leave the community. You have to. There is no in-between. There is no moving forward. And the organizers of that event, as well as other events, need to do better to protect people like David Paulides, not just him, but every speaker that is there. Because when one becomes a target, eventually more become targets. And there are unstable people within the Sasquatch community, the ghost community, the UFO community. And unfortunately, sometimes people have a habit of always wanting to one-up the previous person. And we don't need that kind of violence or threats within a great community that has a lot of fun chasing monsters. Anybody who is anybody in this field, whether you are an amateur or whether you are a professional like Paulides, has one thing in common. It's really cool to say we're monster chasers. We're monster hunters. Let's just have fun with it. Let's hope the law takes over what they need to do. And let's hope that this person is outed so that way they could be banned from the community and conferences so nobody else has to worry about violence moving forward. That is your Dave 101. Do me a favor, if you're on YouTube watching this on replay, leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Let's get to Shirky Poo's news, shall we? All right, Shirky Poo has us all dolled up for tonight. An awkward vaccine side effect has been reported by a Australian woman who claims her body's high beams have been permanently switched on since she got vaccinated. Melbourne-raised content creator TJ, who runs the Instagram and TikTok account Whippa shared the unusual dilemma with her audience. She claimed that her headlights remained on even when she was sitting next to a heater and when outdoor temperatures surged towards 40 degrees Celsius. The headlight euphemism is typically used when referring to the appearance of prominent nipples, a display more associated commonly with cold weather. Cold weather. TJ says she further investigated the matter after receiving several messages from people who made the observation in recent videos. So everyone's been pointing it out to me that you can see my headlights. Yes, I know. Can't help it. Trying to work out why it's happening, especially on a 40-degree day, she said. She explained how eventually she managed to connect the onset of the issue with her double Pfizer vaccination. I worked out that I had the double vaccination and I had Pfizer, and ever since then, my headlights have been on. TJ said it was a little awkward that her boobies were on full display while doing regular tasks daily, like grocery shopping. If the response to her video was anything to go by, her experience is far from isolated. Many other women are now proclaiming that Pfizer has given them perma-erect nipples. Yep. Perma-erect nipples. Perma-erect nipples. There you go. From women to men, there are some good lessons in life that we have to learn the hard way, but once we learn them, we usually learn them for good. Take Vicks VapoRub. Who hasn't done this? Slather that on your chest for the first time, and you might just find yourself feeling like you can breathe freely. Your ailments are soothed. Given this boost, why wouldn't you go ahead and apply one to your testicles? According to Jason Isaacs, he had to try. The Harry Potter actor made the terrible error as a child, and the memory still haunts him until this day. Asked about the worst injury he had ever had, the 58-year-old said, I'm thinking about the first time I remember hurting myself at all was when my best friend gave me some Vicks VapoRub when I had a bad chest. When you and I were at school together, I think I was about 12, I rubbed it on my chest lying in my bed at night. And then when I went to give myself a scratch, well, the Vicks was still on my hands, and I accidentally put it on my testicles. I leapt out of bed, screamed, probably for my mother. Hope in retrospect that I didn't. I needed to wash the nether regions for quite a while before the stinging went away. It's not as bad as hot sauce. Just going to tell you. It's not as bad as hot sauce. Elon Musk has found himself in a bit of a pickle amid fears his plane is being tracked by a 19-year-old. Twitter account at ElonJet has supposedly been using advanced technology to track Elon Musk's private jet for months and has amassed quite the following, currently sitting at over 88,000 followers. Mastermind behind the operation, teenager Jack Sweeney, has allegedly set up 15 other Twitter accounts using the same method in order to broadcast when a chosen plane has taken off or landed. He also runs accounts at CelebJets, which tracks the private jet movements of people like Kylie Jenner, Tom Cruise, and Oprah Winfrey. However, as per protocols report, Musk actually contacted Sweeney to ask him to take Elon Musk's jet offline. In order to try and tempt the 19-year-old, he offered him $5,000. Perhaps a bit stingy coming from the world's richest man, Musk's message allegedly stated, "Can you take this down? It's a security risk." Sweeney replied, "Yes, I can, but it'll cost you a Model 3. Only joking, unless..." To which Musk then said, "I don't love the idea of being shot by a nutcase." After being a little bit more back and forth, Musk proceeded to offer Sweeney $5,000, to which Sweeney replied, "Any chance of upping that to $50,000? It would be a great support in college and would possibly allow me to get a car, maybe even a Model 3. After agreeing to think about the terms Sweeney laid out, Musk has reportedly not been back in touch. Oh, yeah. Earlier this month, Musk tweeted that social media accounts tracking his movements were becoming a security issue, suggestively feeding into the speculation surrounding this Twitter conversation. Last week, it was reported that Musk's brain implant company, Neuralink, is nearing human trials after the company posted job listings for a clinical trial director and coordinator. Moving on. One of them dumb ones when it comes to the Guinness Book of World Records. Don't understand the purpose of this. But an Iranian man broke an unusual record by balancing 85 spoons in various locations on his body. Yep, the man who broke the record in Karaj, Iran, said he had been balancing spoons on his body since he was a child. I accidentally noticed this talent of mine when I was a kid, but after multiple years of practice and effort, I was able to strengthen my talent and develop it to where it is now. Be proud, you're a Guinness World Record holder for balancing spoons on your body. All right, let's get to the thought of the day. Thought of the day happens every night at this time. Well, most of the time when we take a question and then read your comments on the air. Because you know why we love the audience participation around here? Today's thought of the day is as followed. What's wrong with the Sasquatch community? Mark, some of them are kind of closed-minded, but you get that in every type of paranormal research. Amber, they are missing the respect for the Sasquatch and often ask as if they are a beast to be caught and invaded upon. It's like, how would you feel if you were being stalked and someone walked into your home without even knocking? Chris, too much scripted reality television full of opportunists looking to make quick money. Kevin, Dave, there is entirely too much sass and not enough squatch, if you know what I mean. Bob, too much publicity seeking and nowhere enough critical thinking. The BFRO crap on TV is just the worst. Scott, nobody in it knows what they're doing. Terry, it seems like a very close-minded and fractured group. Gemma, after listening to a friend of mine, I can tell you they think the problem is aggression and the constant hunting. Tom, too many, meaning most, researchers that do their research via YouTube, Facebook, and TV shows. Field work has to be done in the field. Michael, too much territorialism, campism, careerism, and pseudoscience. Catherine, what's wrong with the Sasquatch community? There is no sense of community. Lon, a never-ending answer awaits. Jurgen, people try to make themselves a figure of authority on subject humans know nothing about. Ted, it's the experts. There aren't any. Kenneth, not enough time. In other words, it's always UFOs, which is fine, but come on, we're more research on Sasquatch. The guru has the final word tonight. Closed-mindedness, lack of skepticism, no training in any pertinent field, paramilitary approach, resistance to cooperation and data sharing. Just a few things. Bruce has the final word. What's wrong? They don't invest in media training. That is your thought of the day. Thank you to everyone playing along. Thank you to Shirky Poo for the news. Swamp Dweller for his report. World Bigfoot Radio Super Duke and Carl Buschardt for the interview tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms, YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, and Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Know what's nice? You could drive to Whataburger right now, if you wanted to. Yeah, you could hang a Louie, talk to Reggie at the counter, and get a freshly made 100% beef double meat Whataburger with melted cheese and fresh cut veggies on a 5-inch bun. It's just the delicious freedom you have living in the land where there's Whataburger. Of course, some people aren't in that land. Wonder what they're doing right now. Probably thinking about a road trip. Whataburger, just like you like it. When you're craving the delicious Whataburger Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich, time moves more slowly, like in this commercial. Because waiting for 3 crunchy chicken strips for 9 seconds feels more like an hour. Imagining melty cheese for 8 seconds seems like a fortnight. And picturing tangy buffalo sauce and creamy ranch for 13 seconds is like an eon. That's a long 30 seconds. But this sandwich is so worth it. The limited time Whataburger Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back. Just like you like it.